Chapter 2857. No. I thought of it. Qin Feiyang shook his head. You thought of it? This time, it was the Prince of the Dragon's turn to be surprised. Since he had already thought of it, why did he still do it? In this situation, shouldn't he change his plan? Qin Feiyang said, the opportunity is fleeting, I have to make a move. Then you have never thought of a way out? The Prince of the Dragons asked. I'm betting. Betting on whether the space-time gate can be opened. Qin Feiyang said. You're really a gambler. The Prince of the Dragons shook his head. There's nothing I can do about it. If I had a choice, would I bet on this? Qin Feiyang was helpless. The two were originally in a hostile relationship, and this was the first time they officially met, but whether it was their demeanor or tone, they were like old friends for many years. So much so that there wasn't the slightest bit of tension here. The Prince of the Dragons said, What about now? You lost the bet, what do you want to do? What else can I do? I can only perish together with you. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Perish together? The Prince of the Dragons was taken aback. Clang! Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a black iron rod appeared. It was 3 feet long, with 7 star patterns on it, emitting a bright divine light. 7-star rod. Seeing this, Dragon Sovereign and Ancestral Dragon's eyes suddenly flashed with a shocking cold light. This 7-star rod was originally the Wood Dragon Ancestral Dragon's heaven-defying divine weapon. Clang! However, it wasn't over yet. Snowflake and Blood Blade also appeared one after another. 5 heaven-defying divine weapons. The pupils of the people below shrank. 5 divine weapons in one go, this guy was indeed amazing. At the same time, the dragons also looked at Snowflake and Blood Blade in surprise. Where did these heaven-defying divine weapons come from? The most terrifying thing was, the aura emitted by the 5 heaven-defying divine weapons had already exceeded the limit of heaven-defying divine weapons. What do you think will happen if these 5 heaven-defying divine weapons are unsealed and fully awakened? Qin Feiyang looked at the Prince of the Dragons and smiled. As soon as he said this, the people below began to panic. Not to mention 5 heaven-defying divine artifacts, even if there was only one heaven-defying divine artifact, if the seal was really undone, a small place like the Divine Dragon Island would instantly turn into ashes. And the dragons on the island, as well as them, would definitely not be spared. The Prince of the Dragons narrowed his eyes. The faces of the Dragon Sovereign and the Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon were as dark as water. Whoosh! At this moment, another 9 silhouettes arrived one after another. They were the other 9 ancestral dragons. It's you. The Blood Dragon Ancestor Dragon roared and immediately turned into a bloody light, attacking Qin Feiyang. You think you're worthy of fighting me? Qin Feiyang looked over in disdain. The 5 heaven-defying divine artifacts shook violently, releasing a world-destroying might that surged towards the Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon. Not good. The other ancestral dragons' expressions changed as they hurriedly rushed to the side of the Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon. Their auras surged out and blasted towards the divine might of the 5 heaven-defying divine artifacts. Rumble. The 2 invisible auras collided like torrents. Retreat. Below. No one knew who roared, but 2 million people immediately fled in all directions in horror. Li Xiaofan was also among them. His eyes were full of shock. He had never thought that this person would actually be Qin Feiyang. Boom! A wave of destructive energy surged out. The entire cultivation ground was instantly razed to the ground, and the airwave was still crazily surging in all directions. Whoosh! Hundreds of figures rushed out of the dust and smoke. These were the imperishable realm experts who had been hiding in the cultivation grounds. Wang Chang was also inside. He shouted, "Everyone, hurry up and block this wave of energy." Boom! Hundreds of Eternal Realm powerhouses released their divine power and formed a barrier, sealing the airwave inside. They're all out. Inside the barrier. Qin Feiyang glanced at Wang Chang and the others. There were more than 500 people in total. 300 of them were half-step Eternal Realm powerhouses. The remaining 200 or so were almost all beginner Eternal Realm powerhouses. There were also a dozen or so beginner Eternal Realm powerhouses. But Wang Chang was the only one at the beginner Eternal Realm. In other words, in addition to the 750 half-step Eternal Realm powerhouses who died in the East, West, and South, there were a total of 1,300 people in this cultivation ground. However, even the 500 Eternal Realm powerhouses couldn't block the power of the 5 heaven-defying divine artifacts. The barrier was crazily twisting and cracking. Blood Dragon, Ancestral Dragon, and the others kept retreating under the impact of the divine power, their faces pale. Humph! Suddenly, Longzuan snorted and landed in front of Blood Dragon, Ancestral Dragon, and the others. He raised his arm and slapped. Boom! The divine power of the 5 heaven-defying divine artifacts was actually shattered. Qin Feiyang didn't know Longzuan's cultivation before. He only thought that it was unfathomable. But now, he knew. This was a powerhouse at the peak Eternal Realm. The divine power was shattered. Wang Chang and the others couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. They quickly stabilized the barrier to avoid hurting the innocent. Lord Longzuan, kill him. Yes. We have to get rid of him immediately. Because not only did he get these heaven-defying divine artifacts, he also got a lot of divine items in the Nether King's Hell. Blood Dragon, Ancestral Dragon, and the others exclaimed. No way. There's more? Outside the barrier. The 2 million people around were all dumbfounded. Not to mention heaven-defying divine artifacts, even a supreme divine artifact was an extravagant hope for most of them. But Qin Feiyang had more than a dozen heaven-defying divine artifacts by himself. It was really enviable. How many heaven-defying divine artifacts did you get in the Nether King's Hell? Longzuan looked at Qin Feiyang and asked gloomily. Originally, these heaven-defying divine artifacts should have belonged to the dragons, but they were all taken advantage of by this little bastard. Not many. Just 6 heaven-defying divine artifacts and 1 heaven-defying divine art. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Except for the Blood Demon Tower in the hands of the madman, the others were all with Qin Feiyang. What? 6 divine artifacts and 1 divine art? Everyone was shocked. Including Wang Chang and the others. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that this was simply a great fortune. Damn it, damn it. Return these divine artifacts to us. Ancestral Dragon roared. Return them to you? Qin Feiyang smiled. He looked at Ancestral Dragon Black Dragon and sneered, then I want to ask you, do these divine objects have your names imprinted on them? The Nether King's Hell is the world of Sir Dragon God. Everything inside belongs to us dragons, including these divine artifacts. Ancestral Dragon said in a deep voice. Huh, Qin Feiyang suddenly laughed out loud. This was really the funniest joke he had heard in his life. What are you laughing at? Ancestral Dragon roared. I'm laughing at you for being a frog at the bottom of a well. You think that the Nether King's Hell is really the world of Ice Dragon? Ridiculous. Qin Feiyang shook his head and mocked. What do you mean? The Ancestral Dragons frowned. Let me tell you, the Nether King's Hell has nothing to do with Ice Dragon. And the real owner of the Nether King's Hell is the creator of this world. As for the Dragon God that you all worship, he only has the authority to freely enter and exit the Nether King's Hell. Qin Feiyang said lightly. That's impossible. Sir Dragon God has said before that the Nether King's hell is his world. Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon shook his head. If he didn't say that, how could he maintain the great impression in your hearts? Qin Feiyang had a look of disdain. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The 10 ancestral dragons shook their heads. Longzuan couldn't help but frown. The prince of the dragon standing opposite Qin Feiyang had a trace of doubt in his eyes. Although it's cruel, I still have to say that your dragon god isn't as great as you think. Qin Feiyang sneered. Shut up. I won't allow you to slander him. Longzuan said with a murderous aura. The power of the divine dragon roared and charged towards Qin Feiyang with a destructive aura. Looks like this battle is unavoidable. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed as he looked at the 5 great divine artifacts. Boom! The 5 great heaven-defying divine artifacts only awakened slightly before the barrier formed by Wang Chang and the others was directly shattered. Terrifying divine might gushed out in all directions with a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The mountains and rivers continued to collapse. Longzuan's power of the divine dragon was also shattered in an instant as he was sent flying by the divine aura. Oh no! He's really going to unlock the seals of the divine artifacts. A powerhouse in the initial stage of the imperishable realm roared. Do you think I'm joking with you? Qin Feiyang smiled coldly as he looked at the heaven-breaking halberd, 7-star rod and shield of thick earth and shouted, unlock the seals. Wait. But then. The prince of the dragons spoke. Qin Feiyang looked at the prince of the dragons. Even if you let them unlock the seals and destroy the divine dragon island, in the end, you will still die under the blade of the sovereign divine weapon. The prince of the dragons said. Qin Feiyang said, with you dragons as my scapegoat, it's worth dying. Why bother? We can solve it in another way. The prince of the dragons said. Another way? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and said with a smile, tell me about it. Let's have a fair fight. If you win, I'll let you leave the divine dragon island. And if you lose, then leave everything behind on the divine dragon island. Including you. The prince of the dragons said. Me? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. That's right. I won't kill you because I, the dragons, need talents like you. If you lose, you will follow me, the dragons, and serve me, the dragons, forever. What do you think of this proposal? The prince of the dragons laughed. Don't kill me. Qin Feiyang was stunned, and said, I heard that your mother deprived me and my ancestors of the bloodline power to help you. Aren't you tempted by the power of the purple gold dragon blood? Of course I'm tempted. But I admire you more. If you were deprived of your bloodline power, then your value would be gone. Then why would I let you stay in the dragons? Thus, what I want is you as a person, and not your bloodline power. The prince of the dragons said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. This prince of the dragons was indeed more interesting than the dragon sovereign and the 10 great ancestral dragons. Child, don't mess around. The dragon sovereign looked at the prince of the dragons and said angrily. Mother, I'm not messing around. We, the dragons, as the rulers of the ancient world, shouldn't always think of occupying, plundering, and suppressing. What's the difference between these actions and the tyrants of the secular world? So, by doing this, not only will it not make the creatures of the ancient world willingly submit, but it will also cause them to be dissatisfied, disgusted, and disgusted. And in my opinion, only benevolence, morality, and compassion can make them truly support and respect us. The prince of the dragons laughed. Chapter 2858. Soft-hearted. What's the difference if you give it to Qin Feiyang like this? Longzuan was furious, and there was a hint of disappointment in his tone. Mother, this isn't soft-hearted. It's the way of governing the world. The Prince of the Dragons shook his head. Ridiculous. Those who obey me will prosper and those who oppose me will perish. This is the way of governing the world. The dragons shouted. The Prince of the Dragons was silent for a while and didn't say anything else. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and smiled faintly. Do you dare? Qin Feiyang looked at Longzuan sarcastically and smiled at the Prince of the Dragons. It's a fair fight. Why wouldn't I dare? All right. The Prince of the Dragons nodded, his eyes full of admiration. He turned to Longzuan and said, Mother, please send us to the galaxy. I won't allow such a childish trick. Longzuan said coldly. Then what do you want, Mother? Do you really want to give up the entire Divine Dragon Island and all the dragons? The Prince of the Dragons was helpless. As long as we can kill him, we can start all over again. All ancestral dragons, listen up. Take your people and evacuate the Divine Dragon Island immediately. Longzuan shouted. Yes. The 10 ancestral dragons replied respectfully. Wait. The Prince of the Dragons hurriedly shouted at the 10 ancestral dragons, then looked at Longzuan and said anxiously, Mother, even if you evacuate your people, what about the resources of the Divine Dragon Island? You know that resources are the foundation of a force. If all the resources of the Divine Dragon Island are destroyed, how many years do you think it will take to recover? Also, don't forget that Qin Feiyang is not alone. Outside the Inner Sea, there are the 8 heaven-defying divine artifacts, Qin Batian, and the Dragon Slayer Palace. Think about it. If we really go to war with them, can our dragons really deal with it? Yes, no. Even if the sovereign divine weapon is used, I'm afraid both sides will suffer losses. So, since there is a better way to solve this problem, why must we go to war? Whether it's the dragons, humans, or beasts, they are all creatures of this continent. I really don't want to see a scene of people dying. The Prince of Dragons sighed. The Divine Dragon Island indeed had a sovereign divine weapon, and the sovereign divine weapon could indeed kill Qin Feiyang. But you have to know. Qin Feiyang had more than one heaven-defying divine tool. If they really went all out, they would only need an instant to destroy the entire Divine Dragon Island. Longzuan glared at the Prince of Dragons. Although her face was covered by the mist, one could feel that she was furious. However, regarding the Dragon Prince's performance, Qin Feiyang had a whole new level of respect for him time and time again. He had thought that this Prince of the Dragon race would be like the Dragon Sovereign, ruthless and merciless. But who would have thought that he actually had a heart of compassion for the common people? Were they really mother and son? One was selfish and tyrannical by nature, while the other was affectionate and righteous, compassionate and compassionate. The difference was too great. Don't say it. If the dragons were to be led by this prince, the dragons would definitely not be the dragons of today. He would definitely be respected and supported by others. Then, the dragon-slaying palace would not exist. The grudges between him and his ancestors and the dragons would not have arisen. What a pity. This prince was still too young. He did not have the authority to rule the dragons and lead the dragons. Mother, please believe in your son. All the decisions your son has made are for the good of the dragons. The Prince of Dragons looked at Longzuan pleadingly. Nonsense, this is truly nonsense. Longzuan was furious, but he seemed to be helpless as he said, All right, I promise you. But listen carefully, you can only win, you cannot lose. Thank you, Mother. The Prince of Dragons bowed with a faint smile on his face. That smile was filled with confidence. Also, no need to go to the Star River, just go to the Inner Sea. Longzuan said. Inner Sea? The Prince of Dragons was stunned and frowned. Aren't there a lot of sea beasts in the Inner Sea? Before the war starts, I will transfer them to Divine Dragon Island. Long Zun said. Thank you, Mother. The Prince of Dragons smiled. Ancestral Dragon Black said, Lord Long Zun, Your Highness, if you let Qin Feiyang leave Divine Dragon Island, that is equivalent to letting a tiger return to the mountain. That's right. Lord Dragon God's barrier only covers Divine Dragon Island. Once he leaves Divine Dragon Island, the sky is vast. With Qin Feiyang's ability, he can do whatever he wants. The other ancestral dragons also spoke. Because they had the same idea as Long Zun. Since there was this opportunity, even if they had to pay a heavy price, as long as they could get rid of Qin Feiyang, it didn't matter. I have made up my mind. The Prince of Dragons said. Your Highness, please reconsider. The 10 ancestral dragons bowed. All right. If you really want to lose the entire Divine Dragon Island and all the dragons, then do as you please. The Prince of Dragons was also a little angry. It wasn't easy to convince his mother, but he didn't expect another 10 stubborn old men to run out. The 10 ancestral dragons looked at each other, sighed helplessly, and cupped their hands. We have offended you, I hope your highness can forgive us. It's fine. The Prince of Dragons waved his hand. Obviously. The Prince of Dragons was still quite dignified among the dragons. Let's go. With a wave of his hand, Long Zun swept up Qin Feiyang, the Prince of Dragons, and the 10 ancestral dragons, and descended on the west coast of Divine Dragon Island. The sea was right in front of them, with rolling waves. However, no matter how big the waves were, they were unable to rush into Divine Dragon Island. Because on the coastline, there was an invisible barrier that blocked the waves. Qin Feiyang scanned the barrier in the void, and suddenly his heart moved, and he sent a sound transmission. Snowflake, can you open the spacetime law and escape? He had forgotten that Snowflake also had the ability to travel through time. No. As soon as it appeared, I tried it in secret. This barrier laid down by the Divine Dragon is not an ordinary barrier, it has the ability to seal the power of law. Snowflake's artifact spirit thought. So it's like that. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Long Zun glanced at Qin Feiyang, and said indifferently, Do you still not understand? This is a barrier that was specially set up for you. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled, and he secretly cursed himself for being careless. He had actually overlooked that Long Zun had the ability to spy on others' sound transmissions. Specially set up for me? Qin Feiyang smiled, and said, Then shouldn't I feel honored? You should indeed feel honored. Long Zun snorted coldly, and with a wave of his hand, the barrier hidden in the void suddenly appeared. This was an almost transparent barrier, emitting strands of cold air, and also a pure dragon's might. The Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon sent a sound transmission. Lord Long Zun, you have to think carefully, this is your only chance. You all know this child's character. He won't change what he's decided on. Long Zun sighed, and as a stream of divine power poured into the barrier, it immediately opened a gap. You really want me to leave Divine Dragon Island? Qin Feiyang glanced at Long Zun. Long Zun's performance today was really too surprising. He originally thought that Long Zun might secretly do something, but he actually didn't. It seemed that the position of the Prince Dragons in Long Zun's heart was not ordinary. But thinking about it, it made sense. Which mother didn't love her children? If today's identity was exchanged, and Long Zun was replaced by Lu Qiuyu, and the Prince Dragons was replaced by Qin Feiyang, then Lu Qiuyu would definitely follow Qin Feiyang. This was motherly love. Go out. Long Zun took a deep breath, retreated to the side, and looked at the Prince Dragons and Qin Feiyang. Please. The Prince Dragons looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked at the Prince Dragons and said, Are you not afraid that when I go out, I will open the door of time and space or travel through time and space to leave? Then I can only say that I made a mistake, and in the future, you are no longer worthy to be my dragon's opponent. The prince dragon smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang smiled, turned around, stepped out of the barrier, and landed in the sky above the distant sea. The cool sea breeze blew on his face. The battle intent in Qin Feiyang's body was already restless. Not to mention anything else, just the character of the Prince Dragons was worthy of his respect. In this battle, he would accompany him to the end. Qin Feiyang, withdraw. Snowflake's artifact spirit transmitted. Withdraw? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, looking at the 5 heaven-defying artifacts, and said, "You guys go to the castle first." "You really want to fight?" Snowflake was stunned. Honesty is a person's basic principle. Qin Feiyang laughed. "You talk about honesty with the dragons? Are you stupid?" Snowflake was secretly annoyed. It's not about honesty with the dragons, it's just the Prince Dragons alone. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent the 5 heaven-defying artifacts into the Black Tortoise realm. Shua. At this time, the Prince Dragons also walked out of the barrier and stood opposite Qin Feiyang. "Not bad. I didn't make a mistake. If you really want to leave, no one can stop you now." The Prince Dragon smiled. "Then let's begin." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Whoosh. At this time, Wang Chang and the others also rushed over, as well as the 2 million disciples. Other than that, the various races of the dragons also came one after another. Among them were a few familiar faces. For example, the 10th elder of the Black Dragon clan, the Patriarch, and so on. "Lord Ancestral Dragon, what's going on?" The Patriarch of the Black Dragon clan glanced at Qin Feiyang and the Prince Dragons, then turned to look at the Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon suspiciously. "Nonsense. This is simply nonsense." The Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon snorted coldly. "He is Qin Feiyang." Although Qin Feiyang had been to the inland sea several times, he had never entered the Divine Dragon Island. So there were many dragons who saw Qin Feiyang for the first time. Especially some young dragons, their eyes were full of curiosity. The crack on the barrier had already closed. The Dragon Sovereign stood in front of the barrier, looking at Qin Feiyang and the Prince Dragons, his eyes flashing with an inexplicable light. Woo! On the sea, the wind gradually rose and the waves rolled. This was caused by the aura of Qin Feiyang and the Prince Dragons. They slowly released their aura. The battle was about to start. Since it was a fair battle, the Prince Dragons naturally wouldn't use his initial imperishable stage cultivation. Boom! When the Prince Dragon's aura soared to the peak 9th heaven stage, it suddenly stopped. Qin Feiyang's aura had also soared to the peak state. Crash! The sea here was already swept by a storm, and huge waves covered the sky. Chapter 28:59. Swish! Suddenly, as if they had discussed this beforehand, the two rushed towards each other at the same time. Huge waves hit them, and the seawater instantly evaporated. Both of them had already put away their lazy attitude, and a cold light flashed in their eyes. Boom! In an instant. When the two met, they raised their fists and threw a punch at each other. The two fists collided fiercely. A terrifying and destructive aura surged in all directions like a torrent. Hundreds of thousands of miles of sea area boiled in an instant. At the same time, Long Zun appeared above the barrier and waved her hands in the air. At that moment, the entire inland sea, whether it was the sea beasts at the bottom of the sea or the sea beasts on the various islands, all felt an invisible force descending. The next moment, all the sea beasts appeared above Divine Dragon Island. The densely packed sea beasts all had bewildered looks on their faces. Wasn't this Divine Dragon Island? Looking at the battle between Qin Feiyang and the Prince of Dragons, they suddenly understood. It turned out that Long Zun was protecting them. This was new. Long Zun was actually protecting these weak sea beasts. Actually, Long Zun wasn't protecting them. Although the Prince of Dragons didn't want to hurt the sea beasts in the inland sea, Long Zun didn't have such thoughts. In her eyes, these sea beasts were just ants. If they died, she could just go to other sea areas to catch them. The reason why she moved these sea beasts was out of consideration for Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's slaughter zone was well known to the world. Especially the dragons, they had been repeatedly killed by the slaughter zone to the point that they couldn't fight back. So, Long Zun moved these sea beasts because she didn't want Qin Feiyang to have a chance to activate the slaughter zone. Above the sea, Qin Feiyang and the Prince of Dragons' fists collided, and the power kept rushing to the other side. Long hair fluttered in the wind, and their clothes fluttered. Neither of them had any expression on their faces, but there was a trace of surprise in their eyes. Qin Feiyang was quite confident in his physical body and strength. Apart from the Blood Demon clan and Wang Ming, he wasn't afraid of anyone in this regard. But what he didn't expect was that the body and strength of the Prince of Dragons were actually on par with his. Similarly, the princes of the dragons were the same. In the past, he had specially tempered his physical body, so he was very confident in the strength of his physical body. Moreover, his true form was a mystical dragon. The physical body of a divine dragon was naturally stronger than that of a human. But this human's physical body and strength were actually comparable to his? It seemed that this person's reputation was not undeserved. Boom! Both of them exerted their strength at the same time. Their strength surged out from their arms and blasted towards each other. Immediately, their bodies shook, and their feet staggered at the same time. Then, they fell back. Amazing! The Prince of the Dragon's bright eyes flickered with divine light. "You're not bad either," Qin Feiyang said. Before he finished speaking, the two of them rushed out at the same time and attacked each other. Bang! Bang! There weren't any fancy moves, but every punch hit the flesh. There was also the battle awareness and experience. The Prince of the Dragons' battle awareness surprised Qin Feiyang. Logically speaking, this Prince of the Dragons had been cultivating in seclusion in the Dragon Palace all day. He shouldn't have experienced many battles. But now, the battle awareness and experience displayed by the Prince of the Dragons were actually not inferior to his. Although I have been cultivating, at the same time, I have also been fighting with my other self. The Prince of the Dragons seemed to have seen through Qin Feiyang's doubts and said, "Your other self?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "That's right." The Prince of the Dragons nodded. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "You will know in the future." After the Prince of the Dragons finished speaking, he took a very strange step and instantly appeared behind Qin Feiyang. Then, he punched towards Qin Feiyang's back. "Auxiliary divine art?" Qin Feiyang murmured. Boom! He took out the heavenly dragon 9 steps and instantly disappeared in front of the Prince of the Dragons. "Interesting," the Prince of the Dragons whispered. Without any hesitation, he turned around and punched out. As expected, Qin Feiyang was right behind him. The Prince of the Dragons was still able to react at such a fast speed. Furthermore, he was able to determine that Qin Feiyang was behind him. This kind of consciousness could no longer be described as terrifying. Boom! The two once again punched each other and immediately separated. Their speed was unleashed to the extreme as they crazily clashed in the air above the sea. Those below the 9 heavens realm couldn't see their figures at all. They could only hear the sounds of collision and the flames that appeared when they collided. However, people like Long Zun, the ancestral dragons and Wang Chang could clearly see the two. This Qin Feiyang is getting more and more terrifying. Ancestral Dragon Black Dragon said in a deep voice. Yeah. What was his cultivation level before entering the Nether King's hell? But in just a short 200 years, he actually stepped into the peak 9 heavens realm. At this speed, I'm afraid it won't be long before he enters the imperishable realm. When he enters the imperishable realm and opens the slaughter zone, he won't even need a divine artifact to fight with us. The fire dragon and the ancestral dragon were worried. What do you mean he can fight with us? I'm afraid that even if he doesn't use a divine artifact, we will only be killed in seconds. The black dragon ancestral dragon said. Hearing this, the fire dragon, the ancestral dragon and the others were stunned. That's right. When the slaughter zone was opened to a certain level, it could even crush a divine artifact. And they couldn't even block a divine artifact. Naturally, it could crush them too. Thinking of this, their hearts became extremely heavy. Lord Long Zun, no matter what, we have to get rid of him today. The black dragon ancestral dragon said. Long Zun looked at Qin Feiyang and the prince of the dragons in silence. Fuck you. This guy is Qin Feiyang. Li Xiaofei stood in the crowd and looked at Qin Feiyang cursing. Li Xiaofei, you're so close to Qin Feiyang. Are you also his accomplice? A young man next to him stared at Li Xiaofei and asked. Li Xiaofei's expression changed. He looked at the young man and said in a low voice, Bastard, don't talk nonsense. You'll get me killed. Am I really talking nonsense? If you're not his accomplice, why are you living next door to him? The young man sneered. Damn you, don't slander me. Living next door to him means I'm his accomplice? The hundreds of thousands of people in the Dragon God Palace in the north all came from the north with Qin Feiyang. Are they also Qin Feiyang's accomplices? Li Xiaofei stared speechlessly at the young man, then looked at Qin Feiyang again and muttered, If I knew he was Qin Feiyang, would I dare to live next door to him? Above the sea. The battle became more and more intense. Wherever the two went, the void shattered and the waves surged. Swish! Suddenly, a crack appeared in the void not far away. 5 figures walked out of the crack one after another. Qin Badian, Lu Zhengyang, Mermaid Emperor, Black Wing Emperor, White Wing Emperor. Longzuan, the 10 ancestral dragons, Wang Chang and a group of Eternal Realm experts immediately looked at the 5 people with cold light in their eyes. Because they were worried about Qin Feiyang's safety, Qin Badian and the others had been staying in the northern inland sea. Lu Zhengyang, Mermaid Emperor, Black Wing Emperor, and White Wing Emperor. Although they didn't know Qin Feiyang had sneaked into Divine Dragon Island at first, Qin Badian later told them. Compared to Qin Baishan's reaction, they were very shocked and angry. So, they stayed on the coast of the northern inland sea and paid attention to the movements of Divine Dragon Island. In other words, they were attracted by the fluctuations of the battle. So it's Feiyang who is fighting here. Qin Badian glanced at Longzuan and the others, then looked at the battlefield and nodded. He should be the legendary Prince of Dragons. Lu Zhengyang looked at the Prince of Dragons with a trace of surprise in his eyes. This young man was a bit powerful. Besides him, who else in the younger generation of dragons can fight with Feiyang? Qin Badian laughed. Seeing that Qin Feiyang had already come out of Divine Dragon Island, he was relieved. As long as he left Divine Dragon Island, he would have a way to save Qin Feiyang. But looking at the situation now, it seemed that he didn't need to do anything. It was just that, why would Feiyang fight with the Prince of Dragons? Logically speaking, shouldn't Longzuan and the 10 ancestral dragons personally take action to remove Feiyang, this thorn in their side? But now, they were all standing inside the barrier and watching silently. What was going on? Qin Feiyang and the Prince of Dragons also sensed the arrival of Qin Badian and the others. The two separated tacitly and looked at Qin Batian and the others. Qin Batian, Lu Zhengyang, Mermaid Emperor, Black-Winged Emperor, White-Winged Emperor, the Prince of Dragons glanced at them one by one. Sure enough, they were not a group of ordinary people. Especially Qin Batian. He was like a natural emperor, making people involuntarily want to worship him. Although he had long known about Qin Batian and the others, and also knew about the deeds of Qin Batian and the others, this was the first time he officially met them. This time, it left a deep impression on him. Similarly, it was also the first time Qin Feiyang saw the Mermaid Emperor, Black-Winged Emperor, and White-Winged Emperor in person. He was still very unfamiliar with the three of them. However, seeing the arrival of the five ancestors, his heart felt more at ease. Of course, he could not lose to the Prince of Dragons, because he could not embarrass the two ancestors. Let's continue. Qin Feiyang did not say a word to Qin Batian and the others. He turned to look at the Prince of Dragons and said, "Okay." The Prince of Dragons nodded. The two of them unleashed their auras and attacked each other again. The battle instantly became white-hot, and the sky here darkened. The wind was raging, and the sky was trembling. Although they did not use their divine power, divine arts, or divine weapons, the terrifying waves that filled the air were enough to instantly injure a peak ninth heaven realm expert. This was their strength. Under the undead realm, they were invincible kings. Everyone thought that the battle between the two of them would end soon. But the two of them seemed to be testing each other and did not use their full strength. This contest of physical strength lasted for an entire hour, and both sides were equally matched. There were many wounds on both of their bodies. But for them, these injuries were nothing. Qin Feiyang's purple-gold dragon blood had a strong recovery ability. Coupled with the flame of life, not to mention some superficial wounds, even serious injuries could be quickly healed. The Prince of Dragons was the same. He had the heavenly dragon power, and its recovery ability was not inferior to the purple-gold dragon blood. In other words, the two of them were evenly matched in terms of strength and ability. Chapter 2860. The wind swept across millions of miles of the sea, and the rolling waves covered the sky. The two of them charged into the sky, collapsing the sky, and then into the bottom of the sea, stirring up the sea in all directions. However, although the battle was extremely fierce, there was a smile on both of their faces. This kind of smile seemed to have met a confidant. Boom! The two of them once again punched each other. Puff! Whether it was the Prince of Dragons or Qin Feiyang, they both spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. However, between their eyebrows, there was not the slightest sign of weakness, and their battle intent was endless. "It's about time to warm up," Qin Feiyang said. Next, bring out your true ability and fight with all you've got." The Prince of Dragons nodded. After fighting for half an hour, it's actually just a warm-up? When people like Li Xiaofei heard the words of the two, they were all stunned. This half an hour of fierce battle, everyone witnessed it with their own eyes. Although they had only activated their support-type divine arts and did not use any other divine weapons or divine arts, each of their attacks was fatal. Every moment of collision was also soul-stirring. It could be said that a little carelessness, or a little slower reaction, and one of them would lose their life. In their opinion, this was already very terrifying. But they did not expect that the two of them would actually say that it was just a warm-up. If the warm-up was already so strong, then how terrifying would the real battle be? These two were monsters. Boom! As soon as the two of them finished speaking, divine power immediately broke out of their bodies and blasted in all directions. The terrifying destructive force suddenly swept in all directions, and the void in this area collapsed crazily. The sea below even set off huge waves. Heavenly Dragon's secret art, moon slashing. The Prince of Dragon's eyes were like torches, and with a low roar, a milky white light sword appeared in the sky. This light sword was 1,000 feet long, exuding a sharp edge that could destroy heaven and earth. This was impressively a supreme divine technique. Divine Dragon Seal. Qin Feiyang's eyes were also as bright as the stars. Roar. Accompanied by a loud dragon roar, a blood light rushed into the sky. In an instant, a 1,000-meter-long divine seal appeared in the sky. After taking the pill given to him by Qin Batian, the divine dragon seal also changed color. In the past, the divine dragon seal was purple-gold in color and had a sacred aura. At this moment, the divine dragon seal was completely crimson in color, as if it was formed by a combination of baleful aura and blood qi. A single look at it was enough to make one's scalp tingle. This is also a supreme tier divine art. Someone muttered. Rumble. The two supreme-grade divine arts, carrying with them the power to destroy the world, fiercely collided. The world instantly lost its color. Milky white divine light and blood-red light filled every corner of the room. Puff. Their bodies trembled as they spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Even the power of the deity technique is the same. Everyone was stunned. If they continued to fight like this, how would they be able to determine the winner? Heavenly Dragon Art, Divine Moon. While everyone was still in shock, the Prince of the Dragons made another move, pointing at the sky. The sun immediately disappeared, and the earth fell into darkness. What happened? Isn't it morning? Why is it so dark? Everyone looked up at the sky, their eyes filled with suspicion. Boom! In the next moment, a vast and mighty aura erupted from the top of the clouds. This aura was also filled with a sacred aura. Following closely, above the pitch-black sky, wisps of milky white light emerged. As soon as this light appeared, it became more and more dazzling. Finally, a huge round moon appeared at the top of the clouds. At that moment, the world here was shrouded in a milky white light. It was like a real round moon. However, although it looked beautiful, it was filled with a great sense of danger. Qin Feiyang felt it the most clearly. The power of this round moon was probably enough to kill any 9 heavens realm. However, he was not afraid at all. Similarly, Qin Feiyang pointed at the sky. Blood clouds suddenly appeared in the upper half of the sky. Following closely, a blood-red statue appeared. This was the third move of the Divine Dragon Art, 9-5 Supreme Tier. On one side, the divine moon was resplendent, and on the other side, blood light surged. The two separated the sky into 2 halves, opposing each other as equals. The world here was once again shrouded in blood light and milky white light. The terrifying divine power was like a tide, drowning in all directions. Although the Divine Dragon Island had a barrier, the humans, divine dragons, and sea beasts inside could not help but feel fear. These two divine arts could be considered as the strongest killing techniques apart from the heaven-defying divine arts. Divine Moon, Fall. The dragon's prince's figure was tall and straight, as handsome as jade, like a god. He gently pressed his finger. That round of divine moon immediately fell from the top of the sky. Shatter it. Qin Feiyang also said softly. Clang. The statue raised the broken sword in his hand and slashed at the divine moon. The two divine arts collided once again, erupting with a dazzling light and a deafening rumble. Puff! The two spat out another mouthful of blood. Strong. Then what's next? The dragon's prince's eyes were incomparably sharp, and the power of the heavenly dragon roared out. 1, 10, 90. A total of 90 heavenly dragons appeared in the sky, each lifelike, and their dragon power shook the world. Heavenly Dragon Art, Heavenly Dragon Subdues Demons. The dragon's prince waved his hand, and the 90 heavenly dragons roared in the sky and swooped down toward Qin Feiyang. Their auras were firmly locked onto Qin Feiyang. With their auras locked onto Qin Feiyang could not avoid and could only meet them head-on. This is too strong. The aura of each heavenly dragon has already reached the peak of the divine arts. Can Qin Feiyang take it? The humans on the island began to discuss. If he can't even take it, can he still be called Qin Feiyang? Qin Badian laughed. As expected. Qin Feiyang did not have the slightest bit of nervousness on his face. Clang! The next moment, Qin Feiyang took a step forward, and waves of sword qi rushed out of his body like a tide. In the void above, 90 flaming sword shadows suddenly appeared. The sharpness and aura of these sword shadows had also reached the peak of the divine arts. This person is indeed powerful. Everyone's pupils contracted. Hum! Clang! With the intertwining sound of swords and dragon roars, 90 sword shadows and 90 heavenly dragons crazily fought in the sky. At this moment, the sky was full of sword shadows and heavenly dragons flying and roaring. A rain of light sprinkled down, gorgeous and dazzling, but full of danger. Because each drop of this rain of light was enough to kill a perfect 9 heavens realm. The void had already turned into chaos. In the sea below, the seawater also instantly evaporated. In the sea further away, the waves covered the sky and covered the earth, but they could not get close to this area. Because as long as they got close, they would also evaporate in an instant. In the sky, the heavenly dragons and sword shadows crazily fought. Below, the Prince of Dragons and Qin Feiyang stood facing the wind, smiling at each other. Your strength really surprises me more and more. The Prince of Dragons said. Your strength also surprises me. This heavenly dragon's secret art should be created by you. Qin Feiyang said. That's right. The Prince of Dragons nodded and asked, then what about this sword shadow? Is it also created by you? No. Qin Feiyang shook his head, and said, that's why I'm not as good as you. You're really modest. The Prince of Dragons smiled, and said, don't hide it, take out your true abilities. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Heavenly Dragon Unification. The Prince of Dragons opened his mouth, and the 90 heavenly dragons immediately merged into one. Hum! Immediately, a huge dragon appeared out of nowhere, and the dragon's might soared to another level. I'll go. Is this the rhythm of a heaven-defying divine arts? Everyone was shocked. Heaven-defying divine arts? That's impossible. However, this heavenly dragon unification is already invincible. I'm afraid that other than the heaven-defying divine arts, no one can compete with it. It's hard to say. After all, his opponent is Qin Feiyang. Everyone expressed their opinions and discussed in low voices. Heavenly Dragon Unification. Above the sea, Qin Feiyang looked at the huge dragon, and the smile in his eyes became even stronger. Then, he looked at the Prince of Dragons and said, we are really fated. Why do you say that? The Prince of Dragons asked with a smile. Qin Feiyang did not answer, and spat out a few words with a smile. 9 returned to 1. The 90 sword shadows also instantly merged into one. Clang! A sword shadow of 10,000 feet appeared, its sharpness destroying the world. As expected, it's fate. The Prince of Dragons laughed. Even the moves were the same. If this wasn't fate, then what was? This Qin Feiyang, I really underestimated him in the past. Yeah. Originally, I thought that other than the heaven-defying divine artifact and the heaven-defying divine arts, his own strength wasn't that great. But I didn't think that his own strength would be so strong. You're not the only one. Ask the people here, who didn't think so before? They all thought that the reason he was so arrogant was because of the heaven-defying divine artifacts. But now I know that even without those heaven-defying divine artifacts, he actually has the ability to be arrogant. Everyone looked at the sword shadow in shock. The power of the sword shadow was not any weaker than the dragon. Clang! Roar! The two ultimate killing moves were like two fierce beasts clashing together. Destructive shockwaves exploded. The divine dragon island was fine because of the ice dragon's barrier. Qin Baishan's group of 5 was fine as well. After all, they were all undead realm experts. But the northern inland sea was almost destroyed. Even Feng Daji, who was guarding the northern coast, could feel the waves of battle that were surging towards him. This is indeed the young master's aura. But who is fighting the young master? The heavenly dragon's power is so pure. Could it be the princess of dragons? But is the princess of dragons that strong? Wait. It can't be the prince of dragons. The prince of dragons is an undead realm expert. Feng Daji was shocked. He looked at the depths of the sea and wanted to go and take a look. But his task was to guard this place. So, he didn't dare to leave. Whoosh! Whoosh! The shockwaves were getting stronger. The wind was blowing and the waves were rolling. But the shockwaves were blocked by the power of the two heaven-defying divine artifacts and didn't affect the Dragon God Mountain. Feng Daji, the Fire Lotus, Hua Yi, and the 5-clawed Golden Dragon had 8 heaven-defying divine artifacts. They could not only seal the dragons, but also seal the shockwaves of the battle in the inland sea. So, no matter how terrifying the battle was in the inland sea, it wouldn't hurt the creatures in the west, south, east, and north. Unless the sovereign divine weapon was involved. But the dragons couldn't control this sovereign divine weapon except the ice dragon. So, the creatures in the divine land were absolutely safe. Chapter 2861. At the same time, Hua Yi, Fire Lotus, and 5-clawed Golden Dragon also sensed the battle fluctuations. There was a trace of worry in their eyes. However, they didn't enter the inland sea. Roar! Clang! The sword shadow and the dragon continued to collide. Every time they collided, a dazzling divine light would blossom, as well as a deafening sound. Are they on par again? Ancestral Dragon murmured. Ancestral Dragon of Blood Dragon said in a deep voice, Qin Feiyang's strength is more than this. That's right. The woman in white nodded. Recalling the scene that happened outside the forest of gods and demons, she couldn't help but shudder. Eye of Heaven, 3,000 incarnations, that was Qin Feiyang's real trump card. The other mystical dragons of the dragon tribe were very optimistic when they saw this. Although it seemed that the two were evenly matched, in the heart of the dragons, they all believed that the Prince of Dragons would win. However, the various ancestral dragons knew very well that it wouldn't be easy to defeat Qin Feiyang. They even felt that the Prince of Dragons was a bit arrogant when he suppressed his cultivation to the 9th heaven realm. Kacha. After 100 breaths of confrontation, the sword shadow and the dragon's hands shattered. Puff! Qin Feiyang and the Prince of Dragons were both shaken to the point of retreating, blood gushing out. What a good 9-9-1. Don't tell me that you also inherited this move from someone else. The Prince of Dragons wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Qin Feiyang. I created this move myself. But compared to you, it's still far from enough. After all, I have never created a complete divine art. Qin Feiyang laughed. It's just that you find it troublesome. With your comprehension and talent, isn't it easy to create a divine art? The Prince of Dragons smiled faintly. Praising me like this, aren't you afraid that I will be proud? Qin Feiyang said. I really hope that you will be proud, because proud people are usually very arrogant. Arrogant people are the easiest to deal with. Unfortunately, you are not. The Prince of the Dragons felt regretful. Alright, sorry to disappoint you. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The Prince of the Dragons smiled and said, since we've reached this point, there's no need to hide anymore. Let's take out our real trump card. I'm looking forward to your trump card. Qin Feiyang smiled. I'm looking forward to your performance too. After the Dragon Prince spoke, the heavenly dragon energy in his body erupted like a volcano. Heavenly Dragon Domain. As these words rang out, a barrier appeared out of thin air, instantly enveloping the entire area. Qin Feiyang was also trapped inside. Immediately, his cultivation base began to plummet. 9 heaven stage perfection, 9 heaven stage greater success, 9 heaven stage minor success, 9 heaven stage initial success. In the end, he fell directly to the half 9 heavens realm. This, Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. This heavenly dragon domain was actually exactly the same as the lunatic's blood fiend domain. Swish! Just as Qin Feiyang was distracted, the Prince of the Dragons suddenly appeared in front of Qin Feiyang and slapped a palm onto Qin Feiyang's chest. Puff! Qin Feiyang flew out on the spot, his entire chest caved in. And his 5 internal organs were shattered. A palm heavily injured him. Powerful. The humans, dragons, and sea beasts of Divine Dragon Island were all incomparably shocked. It actually caused Qin Feiyang to instantly fall by 5 small realms, and the gap in cultivation base was instantly widened. The ability of this heavenly dragon domain was too terrifying. Now, one was a half 9 heavens realm, the other was a great circle 9 heavens realm. Did Qin Feiyang still have a chance of winning? I heard from the ancestral dragon that the lunatics people also have this kind of divine art, right? The Prince of the Dragons did not take advantage of the victory to pursue, and looked at Qin Feiyang as he asked. Qin Feiyang stabilized his body, and the bloodline power in his body quickly repaired his damaged 5 internal organs. That's right. And it's also self-created. Qin Feiyang nodded. I'm really looking forward to fighting with him. I'm even more looking forward to the 2 of you joining my dragons. The Prince of the Dragons smiled slightly, and took another step forward, instantly landing behind Qin Feiyang, and punched towards Qin Feiyang's back. This kind of perception of cultivation base, in addition to the Prince of the Dragons activating the auxiliary divine art, Qin Feiyang was unable to counterattack. Because now, he was completely unable to keep up with the Prince of the Dragons' speed. In other words, he could only take a beating now. With a crack, his bones shattered, and his back caved in. Although he was heavily injured twice in a row, his eyes did not show any signs of weakness. But the corners of his mouth were pursed into a bitter smile. This kind of ability really made people despair. How did this Prince of the Dragons and senior brother lunatic think of creating this kind of divine art? If it was someone else, they would not have the strength to resist at all. Don't tell me that this makes you helpless. If that's the case, then I'm really going to be disappointed. The Prince of the Dragons charged towards Qin Feiyang's back, and the heavenly dragon power emitted an aura of destruction. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. Roar! Accompanied by a dragon roar, the battle soul appeared, and the Eye of Heaven was directly activated. A heavenly dragon domain was immediately replicated. The Prince of the Dragons' cultivation base also instantly fell to the half-step 9th heaven realm. At the same time, Qin Feiyang turned around, and with the heavenly dragon 9 steps, he swept behind the Prince of the Dragons, and the power of the dragon surged out, and punched towards the Prince of the Dragons' back. It was worth mentioning. At the same time when Qin Feiyang swept behind the Prince of the Dragons, Qin Baishan's group of 5, Dragon Sovereign, the various ancestral dragons, and Wang Chang's group of experts seemed to have discovered something, and their pupils shrank slightly. I already knew that you have the eye of heaven. Qin Feiyang's speed was fast, but the Prince of the Dragon's speed wasn't slow either. With a move of his feet, he dodged Qin Feiyang's fist. In other words, I know all of your methods. However, you know nothing about my strength. So it'll be difficult for you to hurt me. The Prince of the Dragons spoke again. Is that so? Qin Feiyang's voice resounded in the void. The Prince of the Dragons was shocked, and when he turned around, he saw Qin Feiyang standing in front of him. Wait a minute. Wasn't Qin Feiyang behind him? He turned around, and there was another Qin Feiyang behind him. 2. Just as the Prince of the Dragons was stunned, Qin Feiyang struck out with lightning speed, and his palm struck the Prince of the Dragon's chest. Poof! The Prince of the Dragon's chest suddenly caved in, and his internal organs were shattered. At the same time, the Qin Feiyang behind him punched the Prince of the Dragon's back again. The sound of bones breaking could be heard, and the Prince of the Dragon's back also caved in. That injury was exactly the same as Qin Feiyang's previous injury. Isn't this the injury? The two Qin Feiyang spoke at the same time. 3,000 incarnations? The Prince of the Dragons frowned. You even know about the 3,000 incarnations, it seems that you really know me very well. Qin Feiyang said. Of course I know about the 3,000 incarnations, but when did you activate it? The Prince of the Dragons was suspicious. Before, he didn't notice it at all. Just the moment when I rushed behind you. Because I also know that you know my means. If you want to return the favor, it won't be that easy. So, the moment I rushed behind you, I activated the 3,000 incarnations. And at the same time I activated the 3,000 incarnations, I also activated the concealment technique. I let the incarnations attack you from behind, and I used the concealment technique to run in front of you. That's the whole process. Qin Feiyang said. So that's how it is. The Prince of the Dragons suddenly understood. This battle consciousness, this on-the-spot reaction, it was too terrifying. Even he didn't notice it. However, Qin Batian, Long Zun, and the others had noticed it before. At that time, their reaction was because they saw Qin Feiyang activating the 3,000 incarnations. But they didn't say anything. Qin Batian's group of 5 certainly wouldn't remind the Prince of the Dragons, because they were opponents. As for Long Zun and the others, they knew that if they reminded the Prince of the Dragons, not only would the Prince of the Dragons not be grateful to them, but it would also make him dissatisfied. This was the pride of the Prince of the Dragons. He would not allow anyone to interfere in his battle with Qin Feiyang. Haha, hearing Qin Feiyang's explanation, the Prince of the Dragons not only wasn't depressed, but also laughed. And he laughed very happily. Finally, he met a decent opponent. Let me experience the full power of these 3,000 incarnations. His eyes were filled with boiling battle intent. All right. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the 3,000 incarnations all appeared, surrounding the Prince of the Dragons. Kill! Qin Feiyang roared. The 3,000 incarnations immediately activated the Divine Dragon Seal, and the terrifying divine power shook all directions, bombarding the Prince of the Dragons. 3,000 Divine Dragon Seals, what kind of scene was this? Except for Long Zun and the other undead stage powerhouses, no human, sea beast, or divine dragon had the confidence to take this attack. But the Prince of the Dragons glanced at the 3,000 incarnations, but his eyes were like the bright moon, becoming brighter and brighter. These 3,000 incarnations were indeed invincible. No wonder even the ancestral dragon was terrified in Hades' hell. But the corners of the Prince of the Dragons' mouth suddenly lifted. From between his eyebrows, strands of sacred light surged out. God's domain, open. As the Prince of the Dragons spoke, a white domain slowly unfolded. At this moment, an astonishing scene appeared. Even Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. The 3,000 divine dragon seals, the moment they blasted into the domain, they all automatically collapsed. It was like a small stone falling into the sea. It did not cause any waves and disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Qin Batian and the others also looked at this scene in shock. That's right. Qin Feiyang has the 3,000 divine dragon seals in the Eye of Heaven, but His Highness also has the God's domain. In the God's domain, His Highness is a god who controls fate, and no attack can get close to him. Ancestral Dragon Black Dragon said excitedly. Yes. With the God's domain, His Highness will not lose. The other ancestral dragons also became excited when they saw the God's domain. God's domain? What's this thing? But those who didn't know had a look of suspicion. The Prince of the Dragons looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. The God's domain is one of my innate divine abilities. Innate divine ability? Qin Feiyang was stunned. There was such an innate divine ability in the world? It's very surprising, right? Actually, when I opened the God's domain, I was also very surprised. Because I have never heard of such an innate divine ability. At first, I also thought that this innate divine ability shouldn't be very strong. But the result was greatly beyond my expectations. Because the power of the God's domain is not inferior to the 10 heaven-defying battle souls. The Prince of the Dragons smiled confidently. Chapter 2862. It's not any weaker than the top 10 fighting souls. Qin Feiyang was stunned. The power of the realm of God can be summed up in one sentence. Divine arts are nullified. The Prince of Dragons said. Divine arts are nullified. Qin Feiyang's face changed. Qin Batian, Lu Zhengyang, the Mermaid Emperor, the Black-Winged Emperor, and the White-Winged Emperor were all shocked. They did not expect it to be such an incredible power. It was like the Eye of Nothingness. The Eye of Nothingness that Lu Jiajin had activated back then had such an ability. The only difference was, the Eye of Nothingness nullified the fighting souls. The realm of God nullified the divine arts. The two types of innate divine abilities could be considered to have achieved the same result through different means. What kind of monster was this? The gifted superpowers that he activated did not belong to the top 10 fighting souls, but its power was comparable to the top 10 fighting souls? That's why your 3,000 clones are completely useless against me. The Prince of Dragons smiled and used his auxiliary divine arts. With the realm of God, he quickly approached Qin Feiyang. Swoosh! Seeing this, Qin Feiyang did not hesitate and retreated with his 3,000 incarnations. The Prince of Dragons obviously wanted to shroud him and his 3,000 incarnations in the realm of God. Once they were shrouded in the realm of God, they would not even have the chance to use their divine arts. I don't believe that there is such a powerful gifted superpower. Everyone, let's try again. One of the incarnations suddenly said. That's right. If it doesn't belong to the top 10 fighting souls, how can it be on par with the top 10 fighting souls? The other incarnations roared in anger. What's going on? These doppelgangers of his actually have independent consciousness? What the hell? Hearing the 3,000 incarnations speak, the sea beasts, humans, and divine dragons on the island were in disbelief. They had not fought with Qin Feiyang and did not know the meaning of the 3,000 incarnations. In their eyes, they were just incarnations. How could the incarnations have independent consciousness? What the hell? However, no one gave them an explanation. Those who were in the know, such as the revered dragon, the various ancestral dragons, and Qin Batian, were all paying close attention to the battlefield. Because in their hearts, victory was the most important thing. Ding! Accompanied by loud and clear dragon roars, the 3,000 incarnations all activated the divine dragon seal. The divine dragon roar was the supreme ruler. 3,000 incarnations meant 9,000 divine arts. Densely packed, they filled half the sky. This scene shocked everyone present. So many deity arts, this was too terrifying. Most importantly, even if it was just the incarnation, the 3 moves of the Dragon God technique were not any weaker than Qin Feiyang's original body. If they were in Qin Feiyang's shoes, would they have any chance of winning? No. No, it shouldn't be said that he had no chance of winning. Or should I say, would he be able to escape from these 3,000 incarnations? Yes. If it had been them, they would have had no choice but to flee in the face of these 3,000 incarnations. At this moment, they finally realized how terrifying Qin Feiyang was. Kill! The 3,000 incarnations roared, and the 9,000 divine arts immediately carried the power to destroy the world, majestically charging towards the Prince of the Dragons. However, facing these 9,000 divine arts, the Prince of the Dragons had a smile on his face, and his expression was calm. There was not the slightest trace of worry. And he did not stop. However, perhaps he wanted the 3,000 incarnations to be more realistic and to experience the power of the god's domain more vividly. He slowed down and walked towards Qin Feiyang and the 3,000 incarnations step by step. Finally, the 9,000 divine arts blasted into the god's domain, one after another. But the result was no exception. The moment the 9,000 divine arts entered the god's domain, they directly dissipated. It can really be nullified, the 3,000 incarnations were dumbfounded. This kind of heaven-defying ability was indeed comparable to the 10 heaven-defying battle souls. 3,000 incarnations, in a sense, is already equivalent to a heaven-defying divine art. But after all, it's not a heaven-defying divine art. The Prince of the Dragons shook his head, and 90 dragons roared out, carrying a great dragon might as they charged towards Qin Feiyang and the others. Heaven-defying divine art? Listening to this god's domain can't nullify the heaven-defying divine art? Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Was the Prince of the Dragons deliberately reminding him? Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang raised his hand and waved, and a bloody light suddenly swept out from his fingertips. Boom! With the appearance of this bloody light, a terrifying murderous aura suddenly emerged in this world. Kill formula. Since entering hell, he had not activated the 6-word divine art again. Now there was a sense of strangeness. Be careful. This is the kill formula. When Long Zun saw the bloody light, his face immediately changed and finally couldn't help but remind. This is the kill formula. When the Prince of the Dragons heard this, his eyes immediately locked onto the bloody light, and his heart was quite shocked. He had never seen such a terrifying murderous aura. At the same time, there seemed to be some expectation in his eyes. The kill formula was a heaven-defying divine art, and of course, it would not let him down. Although there was only a wisp of the bloody light, it contained a terrifying destructive power. The 90 sky dragons had no resistance at all and were shattered one by one. In the blink of an eye, the 90 sky dragons were all shattered, and the bloody light swept out of the god's domain like a bolt of lightning. This time, it did not disappear. The bloody light carried a shocking murderous aura and went straight for the Prince of the Dragons. At this moment, the Prince of the Dragons also felt a fatal threat. If he was hit by the bloody light, there would be no accident and he would definitely die on the spot. Don't be careless. Long Zun could not help but remind again. She had personally experienced the kill formula more than once, so she knew how terrifying it was. If he was careless, the outcome would be his body being crushed. Facing any opponent, I will not be careless, not to mention the opponent now is Qin Feiyang. The Prince of the Dragons whispered. Suddenly, he waved his hand, and a ray of milky white divine light burst out. This ray of divine light was completely different from the bloody light. The bloody light contained a monstrous murderous aura, like a peerless god of death. But the Prince of the Dragon's ray of divine light was filled with an incomparably sacred aura, like a god had descended. Qin Feiyang stared at the divine light for the first time. This sacred aura seemed to have a kind of power that could purify all evil. The bloody light's murderous aura was actually wiped out by a bit. Rumble. Accompanied by an earth-shaking loud sound, the bloody light collided with the divine light. Heaven and earth immediately fell into darkness for a moment. Following closely, the monstrous bloody light and the milky white divine light exploded in the void. A destructive wave of air immediately swept out in all directions like a tide. Qin Batian and the other four involuntarily retreated. Divine Dragon Island's barrier was also revealed under the impact of this wave of air. Heaven-defying divine arts and heaven-defying divine artifacts were on the same level. Although it was only a wisp of bloody light, although it was only a ray of divine light, it was already comparable to a heaven-defying divine artifact that had not been awakened. This kind of power could be imagined. The Prince of the Dragon's god's domain directly disintegrated. Now, seeing the god's domain shatter, the 3,000 incarnations' murderous intent surged. Chirp! Chirp! The 3 moves of the dragon's technique and the 4 moves of the fire phoenix technique instantly evolved, densely packed together, like a group of wild beasts, and charged toward the Prince of the Dragons. Just how monstrous are his 3,000 incarnations? So many divine arts. Apart from the strongest imperishable realm experts, who can withstand them? Seeing this scene, the living beings on the island could not help but turn pale with horror. Even the revered dragon and the 10 ancestor dragons' hearts were in their throats. Chapter 2863. Because the Prince of Dragons was not only facing Qin Feiyang, but also 3,000 avatars that looked exactly like Qin Feiyang. In other words, this was not a one-on-one battle at all. The killing intent of your avatars is more terrifying than your own. The Prince of Dragons glanced at the 3,000 avatars and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. Perhaps they are the real me. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. So, you have been suppressing your killing intent all this time? The Prince of Dragons asked. Qin Feiyang was silent for a while and nodded slightly. That's right. He had indeed been suppressing his killing intent. Because of opening the slaughter domain in the past, his personality was quietly changing. He was more bloodthirsty and indifferent than before. Many people knew about this. So now, he would subconsciously control the killing intent in his heart. The 3,000 avatars were different. They didn't know how to hide it, nor did they control it. They just did what they wanted to do. It seems that you are indeed the same as your ancestors, hiding a heart of compassion for the common people. The Prince of Dragons smiled, and the god's domain reappeared. The 3 moves of the Dragon God technique and the 4 moves of the Fire Phoenix technique were like stones sinking into the sea, dissipating in the god's domain. It seems that in the future, the 10 great fighting souls will have to be changed to 11 great fighting souls. Qin Feiyang smiled. If the god's domain can really squeeze into the list of great fighting souls, it will be my honor. The Prince of Dragons smiled faintly. What's going on with these two? This is a battle. And there's a bet. But looking at them like this, they don't seem to care at all. They are talking and laughing. I really admire their temperament. Someone complained without hiding anything. What do you know? This is called appreciating each other. They are respecting each other and appreciating each other. If they really have to fight to the death, I guess they won't be willing. Someone shook his head and smiled. The Prince of Dragons glanced at those who were discussing and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile, it seems that everyone is a little impatient. It seems so. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then let's decide the victor. The Prince of Dragons said. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. The next moment, both of their temperaments had changed greatly. Whether it was their eyes or their expressions, they were both extremely sharp. Ding! Qin Feiyang made the first move. With a dragon roar, his dragon soul soared into the sky, and the Eye of Heaven instantly opened. Domain of Divinity. As Qin Feiyang spoke, a brand new god's domain appeared. No way. It can even replicate the domain of divinity? Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang's domain of divinity, then looked at the dragon's domain of divinity. They were exactly the same. There should be a limit to this abnormal duplication ability. The Eye of Heaven could replicate all attacks. Whether it was a deity art, fighting soul, or innate superpowers, they could all be replicated. People like Li Xiaofan would never understand how terrifying a heaven-defying battle spirit was. The Prince of Dragons looked at the replicated domain of divinity and couldn't help but frown slightly. It seems that the domain of divinity still can't be compared to the top 10 heaven-defying battle spirits. With a sigh, the Prince of Dragons decisively dispersed the domain of divinity. Boom! The next moment, a terrifying aura erupted. The Prince of Dragons was shrouded in a divine light, which was the divine light that collided with Scarlet Swan before. It was obvious. He was serious. What does your highness mean? Someone from the Black Dragon clan asked. The Eye of Heaven actually has things that can't be replicated. The Black Dragon said. What can't be replicated? Everyone was surprised and looked at the Black Dragons. Heaven-defying battle spirit. The Black Dragon said. Heaven-defying battle spirit? Everyone was stunned and asked, Patriarch, you mean that the Eye of Heaven can't replicate the heaven-defying battle spirit? That's right. For example, Qin Baishan's Eye of Reincarnation, the Eye of Heaven can't replicate it. This is the reason why your highness sighed. If the Eye of Heaven can replicate the domain of divinity, it means that the domain of divinity can't be compared with the top 10 heaven-defying battle spirits. The Black Dragons shook his head and sighed. There's such a thing? Everyone was stunned. But I believe that with your highness' talent and ability, the domain of divinity can be compared with the top 10 heaven-defying battle spirits sooner or later. At that time, the Eye of Heaven can't be replicated, and your highness will be in an invincible position. The Black Dragon Ancestor Dragon clenched his fists, his eyes full of confidence. Come out, deity vanquishing sword. The Prince of Dragons turned a deaf ear to these discussions. His expression didn't look very disappointed. As his voice sounded, the divine light around his body suddenly intertwined and condensed into a 3-foot divine sword. The divine aura was many times stronger than before. This is your heaven-defying battle spirit? Qin Feiyang asked. That's right. The Prince of Dragons nodded. He grabbed the deity vanquishing sword and slashed at Qin Feiyang. Thousands of sword qi covered the sky and earth. Qin Feiyang's expression became serious. Killing intent gathered in his palm, and a blood-red sword appeared. He grabbed the blood-red sword and slashed at the sky. Streaks of blood-red sword qi turned into waves of blood and roared. Rumble. The two met in the void, and everything was destroyed. The domain of divinity that Qin Feiyang had replicated was shattered on the spot. The 3,000 clones were all destroyed in an instant. Kill. The two of them roared at the same time. Holding the blood-red sword and the deity vanquishing sword, they charged at each other. Clang. This was a clash of heaven-defying battle spirits. The blood-red sword and the deity vanquishing sword collided, and a dazzling light burst out. I want to see if your kill character art is stronger or if my deity vanquishing battle spirit art is stronger. At this moment, the Dragon Prince was like a completely different person from before. His eyes were as sharp as a blade. The speed of his attacks was like a storm, and it was too much for the eyes to take in. So it's called the deity vanquishing battle spirit art. Qin Feiyang muttered. The speed of his attacks was not any slower than the Prince of Dragons. The two of them constantly flashed and collided in the void. They fought until the sky turned dark, and it was difficult to tell who was the winner. Terrifying destructive waves flooded the surroundings. Fortunately, the sea beasts in the inner sea had been moved to the Divine Dragon Island by Long Zun. Otherwise, this wave would be enough to wipe them all out. Gradually, Qin Feiyang and the Prince of Dragons, who were in the midst of a fierce battle, disappeared at the end of the sea, leaving behind a mess. Where are they going to kill their way to? Everyone rose into the air and looked at the two of them. Wherever they went, the void was annihilated, the sky collapsed, and the sea shattered. It was like the scene of the end of the world. Whoosh! Long Zun and the 10 ancestor dragons quickly flew out of the barrier and chased after Qin Fei and the Prince of Dragons. Qin Batian and the other 4 looked at each other and quickly followed. Obviously, they were worried that Long Zun and the 10 ancestor dragons would help the Prince of Dragons kill Qin Feiyang. However, the other divine dragons, sea beasts, and humans could not leave the Divine Dragon Island. They could only chase along the coast of the Divine Dragon Island. They did not want to miss this exciting battle. What a powerful wave! Eastern Inner Sea. The 5-clawed golden dragon stood in the sky above the coast and looked at the depths of the sea with shock in his eyes. That's right. Qin Feiyang and the Prince of Dragons had fought their way to the east of the Inner Sea. One was like a terrifying killing god, and the other was like a sacred deity. Blood splattered in the sky. It's the kill formula. The two of them fought their way from the east of the Inner Sea to the south of the Inner Sea. Hua Yi stood against the wind. In the sky above the depths of the sea, he could vaguely see 2 figures. Who was this opponent? To be able to fight Qin Feiyang to such an extent. At this moment, whether it was Qin Feiyang or the Prince of Dragons, they were all covered in blood. The wounds on their bodies were shocking. However, it was as if they did not see these wounds. Their eyes were only filled with boiling battle intent. Chapter 2864. What happened? Why is there such a huge commotion? People from the east, west, south, and north were also alarmed and rushed toward the inland sea. No one is allowed to come close. Feng Daji, Hua Yi, Fire Lotus, and the 5-clawed golden dragon released their divine might and intimidated everyone. The 4 of them were now very famous. And everyone knew that they were related to Qin Feiyang. So when they saw the 4 of them, everyone immediately thought that Qin Feiyang was fighting someone in the inland sea. Everyone knew that the inland sea was the dragon's territory. If Qin Feiyang was really fighting someone, then his opponent must be the dragons. This guy already had the ability to fight the dragons head-on. What's the situation? I don't know. They're too fast. Apart from the undead stage experts, no one can catch up to them. But I believe that the final winner will be His Highness. Divine Dragon Island. At this moment, all the dragons were concerned about the battle. Rumble. Crack. Accompanied by a series of loud sounds, 2 figures charged into the sea in the west. Who else could it be but Qin Feiyang and the Prince of the Dragons? The blood sword and the god-vanquishing sword kept colliding, creating dazzling sparks. That destructive fluctuation surged out like a tsunami, shattering everything in its path. When they charged into the northern inland sea again, the entire inland sea was no longer there. The seawater had completely disappeared. The ground was shattered. It was a scene of chaos. Clang! The 2 of them collided with each other. The blood sword and the god-vanquishing sword shattered at the same time. The two of them flew backward and smashed into the ground below. To be able to fight with me until now, it's really beyond my expectations. The Prince of the Dragons soared into the sky. Although he was seriously injured, his aura was still powerful. I should be the one saying that. Qin Feiyang also soared into the sky. With the help of his bloodline power and fire of life, his injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. As the rumors say, he's very arrogant, but he does have the ability to be arrogant. The Prince of the Dragon's eyes flashed coldly. What about you? Besides the god-vanquishing art, what else do you have? If not, then this contest can be declared over. Qin Feiyang said. All right. Then let me announce the end. The Prince of the Dragons raised his hand and waved it violently. A giant hand that covered the sky appeared. An apocalyptic aura surged out from his body. God-slaying palm. As the Prince of the Dragons roared, the giant hand that covered the sky suddenly fell from the sky, crushing everything in its path as it slammed towards Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked up at the descending giant hand, his eyes blazing like torches. Just as the giant hand was about to fall, he suddenly raised his hand, and golden light burst out from his palm. Return formula. A dazzling golden stream of light suddenly roared out and blasted toward the giant hand. Rumble. The two of them met high up in the sky. The world was immediately drowned in golden light and milky white divine light. The god-vanquishing palm was clearly the same as the god-vanquishing sword. It was one of the moves of the god-vanquishing art. The god-slaying art was a heaven-defying art. It could be imagined that the power of the god-slaying palm would not be weaker than the god-slaying sword. The return formula was also a heaven-defying art. Giving oneself a taste of their own medicine. The two god-slaying arts were in a stalemate in the sky, and for a moment, neither could do anything to the other. The Prince of the Dragons looked at the two god-slaying arts and then waved his hand. The god-slaying sword appeared again and slashed towards Qin Feiyang. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang did not dare to hesitate and activated the kill formula again. The blood sword was like a graceful swan, tearing through the sky and slashing towards the god-slaying sword. The return formula and kill formula are both restrained. Now, what will you use to block this move? God-slaying light. The Prince of the Dragon's eyes burst with light as he pointed his index finger in the air. Rumble. A beam of light suddenly spewed out, full of destructive power. It seems that you don't know much about me, otherwise you wouldn't be so confident. As Qin Feiyang's voice fell, a set of armor suddenly appeared on his body. Battle formula. Immediately, he rushed forward and threw a punch at the god-slaying light. With a loud bang, the god-slaying light was annihilated on the spot. One must know. Now, the battle formula could neutralize 90% of the lethality. In other words, the lethality that Qin Feiyang suffered was only 10%. 10% of the lethality was only enough to break the armor on his hand. This is another heaven-defying god-slaying art. The Prince of the Dragons looked dazed. Not bad. This is the battle formula. In terms of heaven-defying god-slaying art, if I say I am second, no one dares to say they are first. Qin Feiyang's domineering aura was unparalleled. Taking a step forward, his speed suddenly soared. Compared to activating the Heavenly Dragon 9 steps, it was many times faster. Even the Prince of the Dragons couldn't catch Qin Feiyang's figure. This speed, the Prince of the Dragons was shocked. Go formula, understand it. Qin Feiyang said. In the next moment, he landed behind the Prince of the Dragons and directly punched out. Boom! The Prince of the Dragons instinctively wanted to dodge, but his speed couldn't keep up at all. Puff! Accompanied by a mouthful of blood, the Prince of the Dragons was blasted out on the spot, his face pale. Go formula, kill formula, battle formula, return formula, at this moment. The Prince of the Dragons finally realized that in the previous battle, Qin Feiyang didn't use his full strength at all. Swish! Without waiting for him to react, Qin Feiyang used the Go formula again. That speed was not something that the Prince of the Dragons could compare with. Facing the current me, do you still have confidence? Qin Feiyang slapped out with his palm, and the Prince of the Dragons was once again sent flying. His whole person was in a sorry state. Emperor Prison. Qin Feiyang opened his mouth again, with a bone-piercing chill in his tone. With the appearance of the dragon soul, the Emperor Prison suddenly fell. The Prince of the Dragons' consciousness suddenly fell into a blank. When he regained consciousness, he suddenly saw Qin Feiyang holding a 3-foot-long battle sword, placed across his neck. The blade of the sword glowed with a faint light. This battle sword was only a legendary level artifact. But even so, at this moment, it could easily take his life. How is it? Qin Feiyang looked at the Prince of the Dragons indifferently. The Prince of the Dragons looked at the battle sword, then looked at Qin Feiyang with a complicated expression, and sighed, "I've lost." Yes. He had lost. Even though he still had a heaven-defying artifact, it couldn't change the fact that he had lost. Because if Qin Feiyang wanted to kill him, he would already be dead. Moreover, when he saw Qin Feiyang activating all the heaven-defying divine arts, he also realized that he would lose. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, put away his battle sword, and at the same time, with a thought, the blood sword and golden light in the sky also dissipated. The Prince of the Dragons also waved his hand, and the god-slaying palm and the god-slaying art disappeared into thin air. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "There's one thing that I don't understand." What? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. You clearly have the ability to defeat me with a crushing force, but why did you fight with me for so long? The Prince of the Dragons was puzzled. Step secret art, return secret art, battle secret art, kill secret art, the 4 great divine arts had speed, defense, and lethality. If Qin Feiyang had gone all out from the beginning, he would have fallen very quickly. But Qin Feiyang did not do so, and had been fighting with him until now. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then looked at the Prince of the Dragons and asked, "Do you really want to know?" The Prince of the Dragons nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "Then don't get angry when I tell you. Am I that narrow-minded?" The Prince of the Dragons smiled. "First of all, I want to know your strength. If I defeat you quickly, then I won't have the chance to see many of your tricks. Secondly, with so many clansmen watching you, I naturally have to give you some face. If you lose too quickly and miserably, then your dignity as a prince will be gone, won't it?" Qin Feiyang smiled. Hearing this, the Prince of the Dragons couldn't help but smile bitterly. It turned out that he was taking care of his feelings. Qin Feiyang asked, "Can I leave now?" "Any time." The Prince of the Dragons nodded. "Thank you." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, turned around, and stepped into the air. Qin Feiyang. The Prince of the Dragons suddenly spoke. Qin Feiyang stopped, turned his head and looked suspiciously at the Prince of the Dragons. The Prince of the Dragons asked, "When are you going to attack my divine dragon island?" "What do you think?" Qin Feiyang asked back. "How would I know what you're thinking?" The Prince of the Dragons smiled helplessly. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, and said, "When I break through to the undead stage, I will make my move." "Undead stage," the Prince of the Dragons murmured, and smiled, "Then you have to be fully prepared, because I won't lose to you again." Qin Feiyang smiled, turned around, and stepped into the air. Boom! But at this moment, accompanied by a loud noise, rays of divine light emerged from the sacred mountain in the center of the divine dragon island. A mighty aura instantly covered the entire inland sea. "This is," Qin Feiyang's expression changed. This aura was too familiar, it was a sovereign divine weapon. Shua. It was also at this moment. A crack appeared in the void, and Qin Baishan's group of 5 ran out, shouting, "Hurry up, Long Zun has opened the sovereign divine realm." What? Sovereign divine realm? Qin Feiyang's expression changed. He had personally experienced the terror of the sovereign divine realm. Until now, he still remembered that when he was trapped in the sovereign divine realm, it was the help of the 2 war souls and the sunset divine bow and other heaven-defying divine weapons, plus the 3rd stage of the slaughter domain that allowed him to kill his way out of the sovereign divine realm. Even so, it was still very difficult to break the sovereign divine realm. In other words, to break the sovereign divine realm, he had to use all his means, especially the slaughter domain and the 2 war souls. So, once he was imprisoned by the sovereign divine realm, then the current him was equivalent to a turtle in a jar. Because neither the slaughter domain or the 2 war souls could help him. There was no blood in the slaughter domain. The 2 war souls were also sealed. How to fight? There was no way to fight. After Qin Batian finished speaking, he grabbed Qin Feiyang, activated the power of law, and tore open a space crack. Boom! However, the sovereign divine realm descended in an instant. The entire inland sea was directly sealed off. With this sovereign divine realm, even Qin Baishan's power of law was unable to open it. Damn it! The Blackwing Emperor was furious. Where do you want to go? Accompanied by a sneer, Long Zun and the 10 ancestral dragons descended. Mother, the Prince of Dragons looked at Long Zun and couldn't help but frown. Long Zun said coldly, "You disappoint me too much. I'm sorry." The Prince of Dragons lowered his head. Chapter 2865. You've made me believe in you again and again, and this is the result of that? Long Zun said angrily. This child has failed to live up to mother's expectations. The Prince of the Dragons lowered his head and said, "Go back to the Dragon Palace and reflect on your mistakes." Long Zun shouted. This child will reflect on himself. The Prince of the Dragons looked up at Long Zun and said, "But before I reflect on myself, I ask Mother to let them go." Shut up. Long Zun was furious. A gentleman's word cannot be taken back. Since I have an agreement with Qin Feiyang, we should keep our promise now. The Prince of the Dragons gathered his courage and looked at Long Zun. Your Highness, you are confused. Talking about promises with these people? Do you know how big a threat they are to us dragons? Take a good look, Qin Batian, Qin Feiyang, Lu Zhengyang, Mermaid Emperor, Black-Winged Emperor, and White-Winged Emperor, which one of them isn't our sworn enemy? Letting them go now is like letting the tiger return to the mountain. The ancestral dragons were also furious. Was His Highness bewitched by Qin Feiyang? With such a good opportunity, not only did he not take the opportunity to get rid of them, he even wanted to let them go? What a joke. Since they are opponents, we should defeat them fair and square. Or are you afraid of them? If you don't even have this bit of courage, how can you call yourself a dragon? The Prince of the Dragons looked at the ancestral dragons and said, Your Highness, I beg you, don't be so childish, okay? If it was them today, do you think they would let us go? The Black Dragon ancestral dragon said angrily. They will. Because before, Qin Feiyang clearly had the chance to kill me, but he didn't do so. What does this mean? It means he is a person who keeps his promise. Because our agreement was not to kill each other, but to defeat each other. The Prince of the Dragons said. Bastard, the more you speak, the more reasonable you are. You too, take him to the Dragon Palace immediately. Without my order, he is not allowed to step out of the Dragon Palace. Long Zun was furious. He looked at Ancestral Dragon, Black Dragon and Fire Dragon, Ancestral Dragon, and shouted. Yes. The Ancestral Dragon and the Black Dragon responded respectfully and walked towards the Dragon Prince. The Imperial Prince looked at the two of them, then at the Dragon Sovereign. Stealing his heart, he suddenly retreated and landed beside Qin Feiyang, saying, "Kidnap me." What? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Qin Batian and the others also looked at him in astonishment. Long Zun and the 10 ancestor dragons were also stunned. Kidnap him? What was he doing? The Prince of Dragons said in a low voice, "Mother is determined to kill you. I can't convince her, so I can only kidnap me to make her hesitate." "But she's your mother," Qin Batian said. "I know she's my mother. If there's no agreement in advance, I definitely won't disobey Mother." The Prince of Dragons said. "Your Highness, don't be stupid, okay? What good will it do you to do this?" The Ancestral Dragons were burning with anxiety. How could there be such a stupid person? He ran in front of the enemy and let the enemy kidnap him. I want to have a clear conscience. At the same time, it's also to protect the face of us dragons. Do you really want the world to talk behind our backs that we dragons are despicable people? The Prince of Dragons looked at the Ancestral Dragons and said. The Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon pointed at Qin Feiyang and the others and said angrily, "As long as these people die, who would dare to talk behind their backs? This is just your wishful thinking. Even if they don't say it, they will curse us dragons in their hearts." The Prince of Dragons said. "Do you really want to do this?" Long Zun said gloomily. Although her expression couldn't be seen, it wasn't difficult to tell from her tone that she was very angry. The Prince of Dragons nodded. Huff. Long Zun took a deep breath, and with a wave of her hand, a crack appeared in the sovereign divine realm. She shouted, "Get lost." Seeing this, Qin Batian immediately took Qin Feiyang and the others out of the sovereign divine realm, opened the spacetime law, and flew away without looking back. Lord Long Zun, the 10 ancestral dragons looked at Long Zun in shock. They never thought that Long Zun would really listen to the prince. What an unfilial son. Long Zun snorted coldly, turned around, and disappeared in the direction of Divine Dragon Island. It seems that Mother is really angry. The Prince of Dragons smiled bitterly. Your Highness, the Dragon Ancestral Dragon looked at the Prince of Dragons, but he didn't want to say it. He shook his head and sighed, turned around, and left. The other 9 ancestral dragons looked at the Prince of Dragons, shook their heads, and left without saying a word. The Prince of Dragons looked at the backs of the 10 people, then looked up at the rapidly closing crack in the sovereign divine realm, and a smile appeared in his eyes. The next time we meet, you will know how terrifying the person who once lost to you is. Grow up quickly. Muttering, the Prince of Dragons turned around and left. The inland sea gradually calmed down. North. Dragon God Mountain Range. Whoosh. Qin Feiyang and the others appeared out of thin air. Young Master. Feng Daji immediately went up to greet them. Thank you for your hard work. Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Daji and smiled. What's so hard about me? You didn't encounter any danger, did you? Feng Daji asked with concern. No. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Feng Daji pointed at the sovereign divine realm and asked suspiciously, then why did the sovereign divine realm appear? Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked through the sovereign divine realm at the inland sea. Qin Batian asked doubtfully, Feiyang, what agreement did you have with the Prince of Dragons? Qin Feiyang said, we agreed that if I won, he would let me leave. If I lost, I would join the dragons. I see. Qin Batian and the others nodded in realization. In that case, this Prince of Dragons is indeed an amazing person. Lu Zhengyang said with a smile. Yes. The Mermaid Emperor and the others also nodded. If they didn't see the Prince of Dragons' actions with their own eyes, who would dare to believe it? Although I won this battle, I don't feel happy at all. Qin Feiyang frowned. Why? The others looked at him, puzzled. I don't know either. I just feel that I won too easily. And although the Prince of Dragons lost, he didn't seem to give me the feeling of losing. Qin Feiyang said. Qin Batian and the others looked at each other and couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. A win is a win, a loss is a loss, how can there be so many questions? This paranoia is too strong. But Qin Feiyang really had an indescribable feeling in his heart at this moment. He felt that the Prince of Dragons seemed to have deliberately let him win. Forget it, let's not think about it. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Anyway, there will be a battle sooner or later. Whether or not he deliberately let him win, he will naturally know when the time comes. Feng Daji asked, what about the Chief Pavilion Master and Yi Shui? They're all rescued. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. That's good. Feng Daji breathed a sigh of relief. Continue to keep an eye here, be careful of the sneak attacks of the ancestral dragons. Although the Prince of Dragons is magnanimous, the ancestral dragons are all sinister and cunning old things. Qin Feiyang reminded. I'll be careful. Feng Daji nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled and led Qin Batian and the others into the castle. At this moment, Yi Shui, the Chief Pavilion Master, Yi Zhong, Yi Cheng, and Old Master Yi were all in the hall of the castle. Dan Wangkai accompanied them. Young Master. Seeing Qin Feiyang enter, Dan Wangkai immediately stood up and bowed. Qin Feiyang nodded. Dan Wangkai said, since you're back, I'll leave this place to you, I'll go and refine pills. Go ahead. Qin Feiyang smiled. Dan Wangkai nodded and smiled at Qin Batian and the others, and then went straight into Qin Feiyang's cultivation room. This little guy really hasn't changed at all, he's not interested in anything except for alchemy. Lu Zhengyang shook his head. Dan Wangkai had once stayed in the Dragon Slayer Palace, so Qin Batian and the others knew his hobby. Isn't this good? Wholeheartedly focus on alchemy. In the future, your achievements in alchemy will definitely surpass everyone else. Qin Batian smiled. Lu Zhengyang shook his head and smiled, looked at the Chief Pavilion Master and said, welcome back. The Chief Pavilion Master's injuries had basically healed, and he had also changed into a clean set of clothes, looking completely different from before. At this moment, he looked at Qin Feiyang, Qin Batian and the others with a complicated look in his eyes. Feiyang, thank you. Yi Zhong grabbed Yi Shui's hand and looked at Qin Feiyang gratefully. Thank you. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said speechlessly, Master, you're treating me like an outsider, I'm your disciple, this is what I should do. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. Yi Zhong shook his head. You guys really know how to scare people. Why didn't you tell me about these things? Old Master Yi glanced at Qin Feiyang and Yi Zhong and said unhappily. Obviously, he had already learned everything from Yi Zhong and Yi Cheng. Yi Shui giggled and said, Great-grandfather, I was afraid that you would find out and expose me. Expose me? You little girl, do you think I'm a blabbermouth? Old Master Yi glared at Yi Shui. I wouldn't dare. Yi Shui scratched her head and smiled awkwardly. Father, it's all in the past, don't mention it. Come, let me introduce you. This is Qin Batian, this is Lu Zhengyang, these three are the Mermaid Emperor, the White Wing Emperor, the Black Wing Emperor, they are all the leaders of the Dragon Slayer Palace. Yi Cheng stepped forward and pointed at Qin Batian and the other four, introducing them to Old Master Yi one by one. Hello, Old Master Yi. Qin Batian and the other four bowed. Qin Batian, Lu Zhengyang, Old Master Yi looked at the 5 of them and said with a hoarse smile, "Your names are all well known. You flatter me." Qin Badian waved his hand. Old Master Yi smiled and turned to look at Yi Zhong. Because he knew that Qin Badian didn't care about him, but his son, Yi Zhong. Qin Badian also looked at Yi Zhong, and a sincere smile appeared on his face. "Brother Yi, I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. This old man never thought that there would be a day where I would stand together with you all." Yi Zhong shook his head and sighed. Qin Badian and Lu Xingyang looked at each other, and a trace of joy appeared on their faces. "So, Brother Yi has already decided to, no. I won't join the Dragon Slayer Palace." Yi Zhong waved his hand. "Of course. You're Feiyang's master, so you have the right and freedom to choose. We won't impose anything on you." Qin Badian smiled. Chapter 2866. Hearing that, Yi Zhong turned and walked to the entrance of the ancient castle. Looking at the scenery outside, he pondered for a moment, then laughed. This old man thinks that this black tortoise world is pretty good. Of course. It's not that this disciple is bragging, but when this disciple goes to find Fire Lotus and the others and brings the resources of the other 3 great dragon god palace, at that time, the black tortoise world will not be any worse than the divine dragon island. Qin Feiyang laughed proudly. Yi Zhong laughed involuntarily. However, Qin Baishan's face darkened. He raised his hand and slapped Qin Feiyang's head. Qin Feiyang was startled. He turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said unhappily, "Ancestor, what are you doing?" "What? I want to ask you, what are you trying to do? What's the point of bragging so much? Hurry up and arrange a place for your master to stay." Qin Badian glared at him snappily. "Arrange a place to stay?" Qin Feiyang was startled. "Look at how smart you are usually, why are you acting so stupid now? Carefully think about what your master said just now." Qin Badian said. "What did he say just now?" Qin Feiyang was startled. Master had just said that this black tortoise world was not bad. Was there a problem? The black tortoise world was not bad to begin with, to be honest. Wait a minute. Qin Feiyang was startled, then suddenly slapped his head, ran out of the castle, and shouted, "Where are the 3 black leopard brothers? He's coming, he's coming. Soon." The 3 black leopard brothers rushed over from the east side of the medicine field. "Immediately go and arrange a courtyard for my master. Remember, you have to decorate it well." Qin Feiyang laughed. The 3 black leopard brothers were startled. They looked at Yi Zhong and whispered, "Is he going to stay here?" "Nonsense, hurry up and go." Qin Feiyang kicked them, and the 3 brothers immediately ran off to get busy. At first, he really didn't understand what Yi Zhong meant. But with Qin Baishan's reminder, he thought about it carefully and realized that there was a hidden meaning in his words. His master said that the black tortoise world was not bad, which meant that he would stay in the black tortoise world in the future. This was something he had always longed for. So, how could he not be excited? His master staying in the black tortoise world not only meant that there would be another powerful master overseeing the place, there would also be other benefits. For example, management. Master had single-handedly created the Dragon God Palace, and in terms of management, he probably couldn't even compare to the Fire Lotus. There was also strategy. If the dragons had listened to Master in the past, they wouldn't have suffered such a loss. Take the matter of Princess Dragons pretending to be Lin Yi as an example. Master was against it at that time. But Princess Dragons and the others didn't listen. They all thought that he would be fooled. And the result? Not only did he fail to trick him, he even snatched the Sunset Divine Bow and the other heaven-defying divine artifacts. In other words, if Princess Dragons and the others were willing to listen to Master's advice, then this wouldn't have happened. So, Master staying in the Black Tortoise world would definitely be of great help to the future development of the Black Tortoise world. And with Master's help, Fire Lotus would be able to relax a little in the future. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Yi Zhong and said with a smile, Master, then I will have to trouble you to help me manage the Black Tortoise world in the future. Ugh! Yi Zhong was stunned and frowned. I thought you were here to enjoy your old age. It turns out that you want me to be your coolie. No, no. How would this disciple dare to let you be my coolie? It's just that when you are free, you can take care of it a little. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. You brat. Yi Zhong shook his head, glanced around, and nodded, all right, I can't stay idle anyway. And I heard that Fire Lotus used to be in charge. She is still so young and talented. She even comprehended the law of time. So, from now on, she can't waste her energy on these trivial matters. Yi Zhong added. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, actually, I also feel that I have let her down. She has been helping me all these years. So, you have to take good care of her and don't let her suffer. Yi Zhong said. Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled, then looked at old man Yi beside him and said with a smile, don't you like to drink tea? The tea garden is over there, you can have as much as you want in the future. Okay. Old Master Yi chuckled. Cough cough. Yi Shui coughed and looked at Qin Feiyang, what about me? You? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He looked at Yi Shui and asked curiously, aren't you a disciple of the Dragon God Palace? Why are you in the Black Tortoise world? Ugh! Yi Shui was stunned. Qin Feiyang said, so, you should go to the Dragon God Palace. Bastard! Yi Shui kicked him angrily. Qin Feiyang quickly dodged to the side and smiled apologetically, don't, it's just a joke. If I really chased you out, it would be strange if Master didn't skin me alive. So, you let me stay because of Grandpa, but in fact, you really want to chase me away? Yi Shui said. Did I? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yi Shui said angrily, that's what you meant. No, how would I dare? Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. Women were indeed creatures that couldn't be provoked. Yi Zhong and Yi Cheng looked at this scene, looked at each other, and couldn't help but shake their heads and smile. In fact, the happiest person was still Yi Cheng. In the past, he was very worried that one day the brothers would turn against each other, but now, that didn't exist. Then, the chief pavilion master looked at Yi Zhong and hesitated, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, arrange a place for me to stay too. Qin Feiyang was stunned, then looked at the chief pavilion master and said with a smile, is this a problem? No. Then, he raised his head to look at the three Black Panther brothers who were busy and said, prepare another courtyard. The location will be next to Master's courtyard, so that it'll be convenient for Master to monitor Supreme Cloud in the future. Yi Zhong heard this and scolded jokingly, can you be more serious? Qin Feiyang chuckled and said, I'm just happy, I'm just joking. The chief pavilion master looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze and said, are you really happy that I'm staying in the Black Tortoise world? Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. The chief pavilion master fell silent. To be honest, she really hated Qin Feiyang. Because it was Qin Feiyang who made her lose everything. But this time, Qin Feiyang risked his life on Divine Dragon Island, which touched her deeply. At this moment, the smile on Qin Feiyang's face was incomparably sincere, as if he really treated her as a family member. So now, her heart was very complicated. She also wanted to be like Qin Feiyang, to let go of all grievances and be close to everyone like a family, but she couldn't do it at the moment. Qin Feiyang looked at the chief pavilion master and said with a smile, don't be conflicted, you don't have a choice. From now on, you're my person in life and my ghost in death. Hearing this, Supreme Cloud was dumbfounded. Yi Zhong and the others were also speechless. These words were nothing to a man, but to a woman, it seemed a little strange. Cough cough. Qin Feiyang also realized that something was wrong and hurriedly said, don't misunderstand, what I mean is, alright, don't explain, this Supreme Pavilion Master has no interest in a little brat like you. Supreme Cloud rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang smiled sheepishly. What seemed like a completely random statement had actually played a role in Supreme Cloud's mind. He no longer hated him so much. Instead, he felt that this kid was a little cute. Qin Batian said, then, Feiyang, let's find a place to sit down and discuss some things. Qin Feiyang was stunned, then nodded and said, just right, I have something to discuss with you guys as well. Under Qin Feiyang's lead, the few of them walked into the courtyard next to the ancient castle. Qin Feiyang took out a tea set and asked as he brewed tea, did anything happen outside while I was at Divine Dragon Island? Qin Batian said, it's only been a little while outside, what could have happened? A little while? Qin Feiyang was stunned, then slapped his head and said with a smile, look at my memory, Divine Dragon Island has a time array that lasts 500 years, and it's only been a little while. Qin Batian and the others shook their heads and chuckled. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Yi Zhong and Supreme Cloud, saying with a smile, Master, Supreme Cloud, come and sit as well. The two of them were about to go to the courtyard arranged by the three Black Panther brothers to take a look, but when they heard Qin Feiyang's voice, they walked in. Yi Shui wanted to follow them in. Yi Qing pulled her back and shook his head, saying, they must be discussing something important, don't join in the fun. What kind of important matter could a brat like him have? Yi Shui pouted. Although he's young, his ability has already far surpassed his peers. Even us, the older generation, are ashamed of our inferiority. Look carefully, Supreme Cloud, Qin Batian, the five of them, and your grandfather, they all treat him as their backbone. Yi Qing said with a smile. Yi Shui looked at the group of people sitting around the table, observing carefully, it seemed like what second grandpa said was true. Was this guy really that capable? In the courtyard. After Qin Feiyang brewed tea, he poured a cup for all seven of them. Qin Batian held the teacup, put it in his mouth, and said with a smile, this celestial dew is really something I can never get tired of. Lu Zhengyang looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Feiyang, what did you want to talk about when you asked the Divine General to tell us to look for you when we're free? Let's talk about your business first. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Lu Zhengyang nodded, then looked at Qin Batian. Qin Batian put down the teacup, looked up at Qin Feiyang, and said, with your help, the dragon-slaying temple is finally unified. I have to thank you for this. It's what I should do. Besides, I also have to thank Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast for being reasonable. Qin Feiyang smiled. Don't flatter me. I'm not that benevolent. Supreme Cloud rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang. If she hadn't fallen into Qin Feiyang's hands, would she have given up control of the dragon-slaying temple? Qin Feiyang smiled, looked at Qin Batian, and said, please continue. Now that the dragon-slaying temple is truly unified and the dragons are sealed on Divine Dragon Island, this matter is not over yet. You've seen the attitude of Supreme Dragon and the other ancestral dragons in the Internal Sea. They will definitely fight to the death with us. And to start a full-scale war with the dragons, whether it's your people or those of the dragon-slaying temple, our strength is far from enough. So, I want to cooperate with you. Qin Batian said. Cooperate? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback, and said with a wry smile, Ancestor, if you need anything, just say the word. Isn't it too official to talk about cooperation? Chapter 2867. I don't agree. Yi Zhong shook his head. Qin Feiyang looked at Yi Zhong suspiciously. It's better to be clear about this matter. The Dragon Slayer Palace is the Dragon Slayer Palace, and you are you. Because the Dragon Slayer Palace is a force with countless people under it. There are too many things involved. Yi Zhong looked at Qin Feiyang and said. But, Qin Feiyang frowned. I know that you are Qin Baishan's descendant. No matter what you do for him, it's only right. But kinship is kinship, and interests are interests. After all, Qin Badian is not the only one in the Dragon Slayer Palace. Yi Zhong said. Qin Badian smiled at Yi Zhong, then looked at Qin Feiyang and nodded. Your master is right. No matter what you do, you have to separate public and private matters. If that's the case, I'm still the young lord of the Dragon Slayer Palace. Then I'm also considered a member of the Dragon Slayer Palace. Qin Feiyang said. But you didn't agree to it either. Qin Badian said with a smile. You didn't even tell me in advance, and you even gave me this task. I would have resisted it. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. Qin Badian shook his head and laughed. Don't complain. Even if you want to join the Dragon Slayer Palace now, I won't agree. Why? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Aren't you afraid of trouble? If you really join the Dragon Slayer Palace, there will be a lot of things for you to deal with. And you have to be responsible for all the people under you. Are you willing to do this? Qin Badian asked. No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He couldn't even manage the Black Tortoise world. How could he manage the Dragon Slayer Palace? Didn't they have nothing better to do? That's right. You're not even willing. Why should I let you enter the Dragon-slaying Palace? Your only mission now is to cultivate well and quickly step into the imperishable stage. Qin Badian said. And the power of laws. You must comprehend the power of law, especially the law of karma that you have grasped. Yi Zhong reminded him. What? Law of karma? Qin Badian and the other four were stunned. Then, they looked at Yi Zhong and Qin Feiyang in bewilderment. Qin Feiyang said, When I returned to Great Qin, I accidentally comprehended it. Accidentally comprehended? The five of them looked at each other. This carelessness was too much of a blow to him. Lu Zhengyang laughed bitterly, and said, The law of karma is one of the strongest laws of time. You must treasure it. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, then looked at Qin Badian and said, I suddenly thought of something, I have to report it to you. What is it? Qin Badian was puzzled. Qin Feiyang said, When I returned this time, I removed the position of Marquis. Removed the position of Marquis? Why? Qin Badian was puzzled. After you left, these Marquis have become the cancer of Great Qin. Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation. So that's how it is. Qin Badian nodded and said with a smile, So be it. Anyway, they only have themselves to blame. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, They don't think so. They even used you to suppress me. Then it seems that these people are really hopeless. Qin Badian shook his head. If they really change, I can be lenient. But look, how long has it been since the incident with the state teacher? They are all starting to form factions again. If we don't punish them severely, Great Qin will probably be in chaos again soon. Qin Feiyang said. You did the right thing. If I was there, I would also support you. Qin Badian smiled slightly. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Then tell me, how do we cooperate? Qin Badian said, I want to move the Dragon Slayer Palace to the Black Tortoise world. Move to the Black Tortoise world? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. I heard that the time formation of your Black Tortoise world is 1,000 years in a day, right? Qin Badian said. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. So, let everyone cultivate in the black tortoise world, it will be faster. When everyone becomes stronger, their chances of defeating the dragons in the future will naturally be higher. Qin Badian smiled. Qin Feiyang heard this and smiled bitterly. That's what I wanted to say. Is that so? Qin Badian was surprised. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, the current black tortoise world is already very big. We can definitely vacate an area and make it the headquarters of the Dragon Slayer Palace. Qin Badian said, in that case, we have the same idea? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Since it's a cooperation, your Dragon Slayer Palace must give us some benefits. Yi Zhong looked at Qin Badian and said. Of course. I've thought about it. In the future, we'll split the benefits of the treasure pavilion. Qin Badian said. Half each? Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. However, Yi Zhong looked unhappy and said, Qin Badian, you're going too far. You're actually scheming against your own descendant. Scheming? Qin Badian was stunned. Qin Feiyang was also puzzled. How was this scheming? Since Supreme Cloud is here, let's have a good discussion. The treasure pavilion belongs to Supreme Cloud, right? Now that Supreme Cloud is following Qin Feiyang, the current owner of the treasure pavilion is naturally Qin Feiyang. In other words, all the benefits of the treasure pavilion belong to us. It has nothing to do with your Dragon Slayer Palace. But now, you're treating the treasure pavilion as the property of your Dragon Slayer Palace and even saying that we'll split it half. It feels like we're taking advantage of you. Tell me, isn't this scheming against us? Yi Zhong looked at Qin Badian and said. That's right. The treasure pavilion has always been my personal property. It has nothing to do with the Dragon Slayer Palace. Even if I'm following Qin Feiyang now, it's not up to your Dragon Slayer Palace to decide. Supreme Cloud said expressionlessly. This, Qin Badian was speechless. That, Supreme Cloud, you're the D-Zun of the Dragon Slayer Palace after all. Isn't it a little unreasonable to say that? Lu Zhengyang said helplessly. Then I'll withdraw from the Dragon Slayer Palace now. Supreme Cloud said. Lu Zhengyang was stunned, and his face was full of wry smiles. So, the benefits you're talking about are not valid at all. Moreover, if Supreme Cloud really withdraws from the Dragon Slayer Palace, the Treasure Pavilion has no obligation to continue providing resources to the Dragon Slayer Palace in the future. If the Dragon Slayer Palace wants resources, then give us something in exchange. Yi Zhong said. This, Qin Badian and the other four looked at each other. After listening to Yi Zhong's words, it seemed that they were not even qualified to cooperate. I told you that this matter can't be done according to the rules. We're all family. It's only right for us to help each other. Why make it so complicated? Qin Feiyang shook his head. Qin Badian smiled bitterly. Yi Zhong's eyes flashed slightly. He looked at Qin Badian and Qin Feiyang and said, "This old man has a suggestion." What suggestion? The two looked at Yi Zhong suspiciously. The Dragon Slayer Palace can enter the Black Tortoise world, and we can continue to provide resources to the Dragon Slayer Palace. But the condition is that when the dragons are destroyed one day, the ruler of the ancient world must be Qin Feiyang. Yi Zhong said. Me? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. When the dragons are destroyed, the ancient world will definitely need a new ruler. And this ruler must have both integrity and talent. So, this old man's suggestion is you. Yi Zhong looked at Qin Feiyang and said. But Qin Feiyang hurriedly said. Yi Zhong waved his hand and interrupted Qin Feiyang. He looked at Qin Badian and said, "What do you think of this old man's suggestion?" Qin Badian smiled and said, "Of course I agree. After all, we have all seen Fei Yang's ability. Then it's settled. Yi Zhong laughed. Yes. Qin Badian nodded. Hey, I'm the one involved. Can you ask for my opinion first? Qin Feiyang looked at the two helplessly. Just listen to me. Yi Zhong and Qin Badian spoke at the same time. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He said helplessly, okay, I'll listen. He was extremely depressed. They knew that he was not interested in this kind of thing at all, but they still forced him to do it. But there was no other way. One was his ancestor, and the other was his master. He had no right to speak at all. In addition, Yi Zhong looked at Qin Badian again and said, when your dragon-slaying palace enters the Black Tortoise world, you must restrain the people below and not disturb the order of the Black Tortoise world. Of course. Qin Badian nodded. You guys discuss it. Anyway, I have nothing to do. I'll go to the west, south, and east to take a look. Qin Feiyang was helpless. Originally, he was the one in charge, but now, he was like a spectator. However, this was quite good. With his master helping to deal with it, he didn't have to worry about it. Go! Qin Badian and Yi Zhong waved their hands. Cough. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly and said, aren't you guys going to ask me to stay? Why would we ask you to stay? The two looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them in astonishment and said with a wry smile, well, I'm an extra. After that, Qin Feiyang got up and looked at Supreme Cloud, saying, why don't you come with me? I don't know the coordinates. Okay. Supreme Cloud nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the two of them immediately appeared beside Feng Daji. Young Lord. Feng Daji got up and smiled. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, I'll have to continue working hard for you. It's fine. Feng Daji waved his hand. Supreme Cloud glanced at Feng Daji, and his eyes flashed slightly. He then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I think you should get someone else to seal the internal sea. Someone else? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Feng Daji looked at Supreme Cloud with dissatisfaction and said, are you doubting my ability? No, don't misunderstand. The Chief Pavilion Master quickly waved his hand. Then why do you want to change people? Feng Daji frowned. I'm doing this for your own good. The Chief Pavilion Master said. For my own good? Feng Daji was even more puzzled. The Chief Pavilion Master looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Feng Daji, Hua Yi, Fire Lotus, and Five-Clawed Golden Dragon are all your most trusted people, right? Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. If he didn't trust them, why would he give them the heaven-defying artifacts? Supreme Cloud said, as far as I know, they are also the strongest people around you. Of course, there's also you, Master, and Li Chang. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned when he said this, and he asked suspiciously, wait, why didn't I see Li Chang just now? He left the ancient castle as soon as he entered the Black Tortoise world, saying that he wanted to take a look at it. Supreme Cloud said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Fire Lotus and the others are your most trusted people, and their strength is not weak, so they shouldn't waste their time here and these heaven-defying artifacts. Now, the Black Tortoise world has a 1 day and 1,000 years time array. This is such a good opportunity, let them go into seclusion to cultivate. This way, when we go to war with the dragons in the future, our chances of winning will be higher. Supreme Cloud said. Chapter 2868. That makes sense. Qin Feiyang nodded. Fire Lotus and Huiyi's talents were obvious to all. Especially Fire Lotus, who had comprehended the law of time and had a bright future. Then there was the Five-Clawed Golden Dragon. Although it hadn't comprehended the law of time, it would definitely become an existence like the ancestral dragon because of its bloodline power. As for Feng Daji, although he didn't have an amazing performance, he was loyal to him. He was even willing to die for him. Because of this, he wouldn't mistreat Feng Daji. Then there were the heaven-defying divine artifacts like the Sunset Divine Bow. Although these divine artifacts weren't as good as the ancient castle, they had a chance to evolve after merging with the Xuanwu realm, but they still had room to grow. Once these divine artifacts grew up, they would be more terrifying than imperishable realm overlords. In short, people like Huolian, Sunset Divine Bow, and other heaven-defying divine artifacts would be his main support in the future. So, he had to improve their strength. But who could replace them to guard the inland sea? Because guarding the inland sea required not only extraordinary strength, but also heaven-defying divine artifacts. Only heaven-defying divine artifacts could deter the dragons. No one in the entire ancient world could take out so many heaven-defying divine artifacts at once, except for him. We can let the people of the Dragon Slayer Palace replace Fire Lotus and the others to guard the inland sea. Cloud Supreme seemed to have seen through Qin Feiyang's thoughts and said with a smile. The Dragon Slayer Palace? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. The Divine Emperors of the Dragon Slayer Palace are all at the imperishable realm and have heaven-defying divine artifacts. They can definitely deter the dragons. Cloud Supreme said. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and nodded. That's a good idea, but does the Dragon Slayer Palace have so many heaven-defying divine artifacts? Cloud Supreme smiled and said, the Dragon Slayer Palace doesn't, but your two ancestors do. My two ancestors? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. They have a total of 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts. 2 are in the hands of Qin Batian and 2 are in the hands of Lu Zhengyang. If they take out these 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts, let the divine emperors take 1 each and guard the 4 directions. Although it's not as good as the current 8 godly artifacts, it's still enough to intimidate the dragons. Supreme Cloud said. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, do they really have 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts? Can I lie to you? Supreme Cloud was speechless. No. I'm just surprised. As far as I know, the only heaven-defying artifacts are the Broken Sword and the Fire Pearl. But I didn't expect that there would be 2 more. These 2 ancestors of mine sure have hidden themselves well. Qin Feiyang was speechless. They are old foxes to begin with. Take me and the Beast Emperor as an example. After spending so much time with them, we only found out later that Lu Zhengyang also has 2 heaven-defying divine artifacts. Supreme Cloud pouted. It's a little unexpected. Qin Feiyang smiled. Actually, if you think about it carefully, you won't be so surprised. Look, the Broken Sword was in the 9th Heaven Palace, right? The Fire Pearl was also in the Sea of Heavenly Dragons, right? Supreme Cloud said. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. The Broken Sword was given to him by Hua Yi. He also saw the Fire Pearl when he fought with the Fire Dragon in the Sea of Heavenly Dragons. Think about it, this is the Divine Land, and his opponents are the dragons. If Qin Batian didn't have a certain level of confidence, would he have left these 2 heaven-defying divine artifacts in the northern region? Supreme Cloud said. That's true. Qin Feiyang thought carefully and nodded. Supreme Cloud said, so, the 2 heaven-defying divine artifacts in Lu Zhengyang's hands are his confidence. Qin Feiyang asked, what about you and the Beast Emperor? We don't have any. Supreme Cloud shook his head. That's not right. Look, the 9th Heaven Palace in the northern region and Tianyun Mountain in Dongling both have a heaven-defying divine artifact. As experts of your level, you and the Beast Emperor don't even have one. This doesn't seem right. Qin Feiyang frowned. What's wrong with this? The Beast Emperor and I were born and raised in the Divine Land. Our fates have been in the hands of the Dragon Clan since birth. Whenever a heaven-defying divine artifact is born in the Divine Land, it belongs to the dragons. It has nothing to do with us. You mean to rob? In the face of such powerful dragons, would we dare to rob? We wouldn't dare to even think about it. You're different. You're outsiders, and the heaven-defying divine artifacts were found in other places. Supreme Cloud shook his head, and there was an indescribable bitterness in his words. Qin Feiyang asked, "Is it because the dragons are too domineering that you have the thought of rebelling?" "I've never truly pledged allegiance to the dragons, so how could I have the thought of rebelling? I just can't stand their behavior, their self-righteous attitude. Don't think that I'm in charge of such a large treasury and seem to be doing well on the surface. In fact, I've been living like a dog all these years, listening to everything they say." Supreme Cloud snorted. "I know that. When I was in the northern region, I heard the head of the treasury say that even if they wanted to enter the Divine Land to report to you, they would have to get the dragon's permission first." Qin Feiyang said. "That's right. Why do you think they should do that? We humans are the leaders of all living things. What right do a bunch of animals have to boss us around?" Supreme Cloud sneered. "You can't say that. It's most reasonable for all things in the world to coexist peacefully." Qin Feiyang said. "If there's a choice, who wouldn't want to coexist peacefully? But would the dragons be willing? In their eyes, they're the masters, and they have the final say in everything. Tell me the truth. In terms of bloodline power, look at the venerable beast. As a divine beast, the fire Qilin, is its bloodline any worse than the divine dragons? No. But the dragons just look down on the venerable beast. They think that the venerable beast is not qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as them." Supreme Cloud said. "In terms of bloodline power, the Qilin and the divine dragon are indeed on par." Qin Feiyang nodded. "You can understand, but they don't. Maybe they do, but they don't want to admit it. In short, with the way the dragons are behaving, it's only a matter of time before they're destroyed. Even if we don't do anything now, someone will definitely stand out to destroy them in the future. As for the Empyrean Palace and Heaven Cloud Mountain you mentioned, these forces actually have a very long heritage. Especially the Empyrean Palace, it's said to have been passed down from the previous era. So, it's not rare to have a heaven-defying divine artifact. It's just that they're not in China, and they usually keep a low profile, so they didn't attract the dragon's attention. Besides, the emperors are far away, and the dragons don't want to interfere so much." Supreme Cloud said. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Now that you mention it, being born in the divine prefecture is quite a sad thing. It's sad to begin with. Although China is the sacred land of the ancient realm, it's still far from the northern region and the other 4 major regions. If I had to choose, I'd rather live in the 4 major regions. Although the resources of the 4 major regions are not as good as those of China, at least there's some freedom, and we don't have to face the dragons all day." Supreme Cloud said. "That's true." Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile. "So, we must dismantle the rule of the dragons and let the humans regain control of this land." Supreme Cloud clenched his fists. Qin Feiyang teased, "Unfortunately, you can no longer replace the venerable dragon and become the new empress of the ancient realm. You're still making fun of me?" Supreme Cloud looked at Qin Feiyang with dissatisfaction. "Isn't that what you're thinking?" Qin Feiyang laughed mockingly. "That's enough. Now that Yi Zhong and Qin Batian are supporting you, where am I?" Supreme Cloud pursed his lips, then said, "But speaking of which, do you really want to be the ruler of the ancient realm?" "I'm not interested at all." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Then why don't you reject it directly?" Supreme Cloud was suspicious. " I do, but you've seen it yourself. What's the use of me rejecting it? Qin Feiyang was helpless, then smiled and said, "But it doesn't matter. I already have a suitable candidate in mind. When the time comes, I'll just shove it to him and leave." "Who is it?" Supreme Cloud was curious. "Keep it a secret first." Qin Feiyang chuckled. Supreme Cloud was helpless. "Actually, I think that you're very suitable to be the ruler of the ancient realm." Feng Daji looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Although he wasn't present at the time, he had already guessed the general idea after hearing the conversation between Qin Feiyang and Supreme Cloud. "Absolutely not." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said firmly. Feng Daji smiled bitterly. This young man was really different. The status and power that others dreamed of, and now that it was in front of him, he wasn't willing to accept it. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then looked at Supreme Cloud and nodded. "Your suggestion is good. We'll let the people of the Dragon Slayer Palace guard the internal sea." Feng Daji said, "Young lord, it doesn't matter. My talent isn't as good as everyone else's, not as good as who? Me? Or Supreme Cloud? Let me tell you, no matter what you do in life, you have to be confident. The imperishable realm isn't your final destination. The sovereign realm is your goal. Do you understand?" Qin Feiyang said with a straight face. "Sovereign realm?" Feng Daji was stunned, and the bitter smile on his face deepened. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, "Let me ask you, are you confident?" Feng Daji cast a pleading look at Supreme Cloud. Supreme Cloud smiled at him encouragingly. Seeing this, Feng Daji made up his mind. Looking at Qin Feiyang, he nodded and said, "I am." "That's more like it." Qin Feiyang smiled in satisfaction. Looking at Supreme Cloud, he said, "In that case, we don't have to go to the east, west, or south. Let's go to the treasure pavilion to see Shangguan Qiu and deal with some things. Anyway, the fire lotus, Hua Yi, and the five-clawed golden dragon would be back." He didn't want to make another trip. Supreme Cloud asked, "You want to deal with Ren Xiaolan and the steward?" "Yes. Ren Xiaolan disappointed me. I've taken good care of her, but how did she repay me?" A cold glint flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes. Supreme Cloud said, "But Ren Xiaolan and the steward are monitoring Shangguan Qiu because of me. Is there a difference?" "No. If she is really a grateful person, she will maintain her stance even when facing you. Changing her stance so easily shows that she is not a trustworthy person. If such a person continues to stay in the treasure pavilion, she will become a source of trouble sooner or later," Qin Feiyang said. The chief pavilion master looked deeply at Qin Feiyang, then opened an altar. The two walked up one after another. Chapter 2869. Holy Dragon City. Due to the elimination of the dragons, the people of Holy Dragon City were in a state of panic. The people of the Dragon Slayer Palace, such as Jiang Dafei and Lei Bing, no longer had to hide their identities and stood out openly. Above the city lord's residence, Jiang Dafei stood against the wind and scanned the chaotic city below. There was a murderous aura between his brows. Whoosh! A man in armor rushed into the sky and said respectfully, reporting to the city lord, "All the dragons in the city have been eliminated." This person was the great commander of the city lord's residence. He was a perfected Nine Heavens realm cultivator and was also Jiang Dafei's confidant. "Very good." Jiang Dafei nodded, then looked outside the city and ordered, "Take your men out of the city now and search everywhere. As long as you find the dragons, kill them without mercy." "Yes." The great commander responded respectfully, then looked at the guards below and shouted, "Follow me out of the city." Immediately, the group of guards then flew out of the city in a grandiose manner. Whoosh! Right at this moment, Two figures descended in the sky above the city. Jiang Dafei looked up and a trace of joy appeared on his face. He ran up and said respectfully, "This subordinate greets the young lord." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Greetings, Supreme Cloud." Jiang Dafei bowed respectfully to Supreme Cloud again. "Good." Supreme Cloud smiled faintly. "Seeing that you guys have returned safely, I can finally be at ease." Jiang Dafei smiled. "You know that I went to Divine Dragon Island?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. The Divine General said so." The Divine General also heard it from the Qin Emperor. However, they all ordered that the news of you entering Divine Dragon Island must be kept a secret. Jiang Dafei said. "What about the Divine General?" Qin Feiyang asked. "After killing the dragon's messenger, he went to other cities. You also know that there are more than 1,000 cities in the north region alone. 108 divine generals have to go to the east, west, south, and north respectively, so they are very busy now." Jiang Dafei said. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "How is Holy Dragon City now?" "The remnants of the dragons have been uprooted. But according to my guess, there might be dragons hiding outside the city. Because you have sealed off the inner sea, they have no way of escaping back to the Divine Dragon Island. Therefore, if there are any more, they will definitely be hiding outside the city. So I sent people out of the city to search." Jiang Dafei said. "Well done." Qin Feiyang patted Jiang Dafei's shoulder. "It's all thanks to young lord's good leadership." Jiang Dafei scratched his head. Qin Feiyang couldn't help laughing. But suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and frowned slightly. "What is it?" Jiang Dafei looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang slapped his head and said, "I almost forgot about these people." "Who?" Jiang Dafei asked. Qin Feiyang said, "Wu Baichuan, Wu Baisheng, Duyuntian." "So it's them." Jiang Dafei nodded in realization. "Although I have already killed them in the Nether King's Hell, they left their souls outside before entering the Nether King's Hell. These three people must be eliminated." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He turned to look at Supreme Cloud and asked, "Can you find them?" "I have no contact with them. I have to ask Wang Ming about this. After all, Wu Baisheng is Wang Ming's disciple." Supreme Cloud shook his head. Qin Feiyang asked telepathically, "Wang Ming, do you know where Wu Baisheng and the others are?" Wang Ming hesitated and said, "I have looked for them. They are hiding on Mount Qingyun in the east." "You don't want me to kill them, do you?" Qin Feiyang heard Wang Ming's hesitation and asked secretly. "If possible, I would like to ask you to let them go. After all, Wu Baisheng is my disciple." Wang Ming said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said telepathically, "Okay, for your sake, I will give them a chance." Wang Ming had risked his life to save him, so he had to give him face. "Thank you." Wang Ming said gratefully. Qin Feiyang turned to Supreme Cloud and asked, "Do you know where Mount Qingyun is?" "Yes. It is not far from the Dragon God Temple in the east." Supreme Cloud nodded. "Okay. Go there now and bring Wu Baisheng and the others here, but test them. Jiang Dafei, you go too." Qin Feiyang whispered a few words in their ears. "Understood." The two nodded, opened the altar, and quickly left. After watching the two leave, Qin Feiyang lowered his head and scanned the city below. At this moment, the people in the city were also looking at Qin Feiyang with deep fear in their eyes. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and took a step forward, landing directly at the entrance of the treasure pavilion. "Brother Qin, long time no see. I really missed you." A chubby fatso immediately ran to Qin Feiyang with a smile. This person was the manager of the treasure pavilion. There were many people at the entrance, including the treasure pavilion guards and staff. Sheng Guanqiu and Ren Xiaolan were also in the crowd. After such a big incident, they still had the mood to trade at the treasure pavilion? Therefore, there was not a single guest in the treasure pavilion now. Moreover, the people in the treasure pavilion had been paying attention to the situation in Holy Dragon City. Therefore, they also noticed the appearance of Qin Feiyang and Supreme Cloud immediately. Except for Sheng Guanqiu, everyone else was puzzled. Especially the manager and Ren Xiaolan. Why would Qin Feiyang and the chief pavilion master be together? And it seemed that they were on good terms. But this was not right. Qin Feiyang had repeatedly caused havoc in the treasure pavilion, and the chief pavilion master had long been dissatisfied. No matter what, it was impossible for them to stand together and talk and laugh. This was because they did not know that Supreme Cloud had already submitted to Qin Feiyang, nor did they know what had happened at Divine Dragon Island. Therefore, in their opinion, the harmony between Qin Feiyang and Supreme Cloud was something unbelievable. You want me dead? You want me dead, don't you? Qin Feiyang looked at the manager and teased. This, the manager's face stiffened, and he quickly said, "What are you saying? I really miss you, brother." Qin Feiyang chuckled, walked to Sheng Guanqiu, and said with a smile, "How was it?" "What do you mean how was it?" Sheng Guanqiu was suspicious. What else could it be? It must be whether they made things difficult for you. Qin Feiyang was speechless. No, they didn't. Sheng Guanqiu shook his head. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile, and said, "Take me to a quiet place." Okay. Sheng Guanqiu nodded, turned, and walked inside. Qin Feiyang looked at the manager, and then at Ren Xiaolan, and said with a smile, "You too, come with me." The manager and Ren Xiaolan looked at each other and quickly followed. "Manager, why do I feel that the atmosphere is a little strange?" Ren Xiaolan looked at Qin Feiyang's back and asked telepathically. "I also feel that something is not right." The manager muttered. On the third floor. In a secluded study. Qin Feiyang entered the room and sat by the tea table. The manager also sat next to Qin Feiyang, looked at Sheng Guanqiu and Ren Xiaolan, and said, "Why are you standing there? Make some tea." Okay. Both of them nodded. Sheng Guanqiu was about to do it, but Ren Xiaolan ran to the tea table and washed the tea set. Sheng Guanqiu saw this and could not help but shake his head with a smile. Then he stood aside and looked at Qin Feiyang silently. This man was getting more and more charming. "Brother Qin, when did you come back from the Nether King's hell?" The manager asked with a smile. "A few days ago." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The manager asked calmly, "What about you and the chief pavilion master?" "We met by chance." Qin Feiyang said. "Chance?" The manager was stunned. This was too much of a coincidence. Besides, even if they met by chance, would they be standing together and talking and laughing? "Young Master Qin, have some tea." Ren Xiaolan poured a cup of tea and handed it to Qin Feiyang. "Thank you." Qin Feiyang took the teacup and smiled. "Why are you being so polite with me? If it weren't for you, would I be where I am today?" Ren Xiaolan said. "So, you still remember?" Qin Feiyang laughed. "Look at what young master is saying. How can I forget about this? Besides, the elders have taught me to be a grateful person since I was young." Ren Xiaolan said. Knowing how to repay kindness, Qin Feiyang murmured and smiled. "There's nothing wrong with that." Ren Xiaolan smiled. Qin Feiyang looked up at Sheng Guanqiu and frowned. "Are you sure you want to stay in the treasure pavilion?" "Of course." Sheng Guanqiu nodded. "You should know that the Black Tortoise World's time array is 1,000 years in a day. With such a good opportunity in front of you, aren't you tempted?" Qin Feiyang said. What? 1,000 years in a day. Ren Xiaolan and the manager were shocked. Qin Feiyang ignored them and looked at Sheng Guanqiu quietly. Sheng Guanqiu pondered for a while and said, "If I want to go to the Black Tortoise world, I'll pester you all day. Are you okay with that?" Ahem. Qin Feiyang coughed and said helplessly, "Besides that, there are many other things you can do." Sheng Guanqiu said, "But other than pestering you, I'm not interested in anything else." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. "I'm just kidding. To be honest, I'm not interested in cultivation. Maybe it's because I'm used to this life in the treasure pavilion." Sheng Guanqiu said. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and nodded. "All right, I'll give you a chance to manage the treasure pavilion." Manage the treasure pavilion? Sheng Guanqiu was stunned. Ren Xiaolan and the manager looked at each other. What did that mean? Let Sheng Guanqiu manage the treasure pavilion? Dream on. Let's not talk about whether Sheng Guanqiu has the ability to manage the treasure hall. This matter is not something that you, Qin Feiyang, can decide. The chief pavilion master had the final say. Who did he think he was? How dare he meddle in the internal affairs of the treasure pavilion? But they only dared to think about it in their hearts. Who did not know Qin Feiyang's methods? Offending him was akin to offending the Grim Reaper. What do you think? Qin Feiyang looked at Sheng Guanqiu and asked with a smile. This. Sheng Guanqiu hesitated and said, "I'm afraid I'm not capable enough. Besides, my strength is not enough to convince the others. At least you know your place." The manager sneered secretly. "It's okay. With me behind you, who dares to disobey? As for ability, it's all slowly trained." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Sheng Guanqiu looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. "With me behind you, who dares to disobey?" This was too domineering. Chapter 2870. Sheng Guanqiu was very touched and felt at ease. This man always gives me a sense of security. The steward could not help but say, "Brother Qin, isn't it a little inappropriate for you to do this?" "What's inappropriate about it?" Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. "After all, they are the people of the treasure pavilion. You." At this point, the steward seemed to be in a difficult position and did not continue. However, as long as one was not a fool, one would know that he was implying that an outsider like him had no right to interfere. Qin Feiyang looked at the steward and said, "Are you trying to say that I am an outsider and have no right to interfere with the internal affairs of the treasure pavilion?" "Yes." The steward bit the bullet and nodded. "What if I tell you that I am the owner of the treasure pavilion now?" Qin Feiyang looked at him mockingly. "What?" The steward looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze, seriously wondering if there was something wrong with his ears. "I said, if I am the owner of the treasure pavilion now, do I have the right?" Qin Feiyang repeated. The steward was dumbfounded. This person really dares to say anything. The owner of the treasure pavilion? The chief pavilion master is still around. Do you think you have the right? The steward smiled and said, "If you are the owner of the treasure pavilion, you definitely have the right," but, before he could finish, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "All right, it's decided then. Sheng Guanqiu will be in charge of the treasure pavilion in the future." Hearing that, the steward suddenly stood up and glared at Qin Feiyang. "Brother Qin, I respect you, but don't push your luck." Obviously, Qin Feiyang's repeated assertions of his own accord had completely infuriated him. "Didn't you say that as long as I am the owner of the treasure pavilion, I have the right to make the decision?" Qin Feiyang looked at him in confusion. "I said that, but are you the owner of the treasure pavilion? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some strength. This is not the Dragon Slayer Palace or the Dragon God Palace. This is the treasure pavilion. This is not a place where you can behave atrociously. The manager said angrily. Qin Feiyang held the teacup and tasted it leisurely. He smiled and said, "Please continue." Looking at Qin Feiyang's attitude, the steward's anger suddenly became uncontrollable. He pointed at the door and shouted, "You are not welcome here. Please leave." "Are you sure?" Qin Feiyang sipped his tea and said with a smile. "Do you not understand human language?" The steward slapped Qin Feiyang's hand, and the teacup in Qin Feiyang's hand suddenly fell and shattered into pieces. The tea splashed all over Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. "Get out! Immediately, right now!" The manager roared. "All right." Qin Feiyang suddenly stood up and said indifferently, "Don't kneel and beg me to come in later." With that said, Qin Feiyang walked out of the study and went downstairs. He left the treasure pavilion and stood on the street. "Listen to me. He is not allowed to step into the treasure pavilion." The steward followed him and shouted at the guards at the door. The 4 guards looked at each other. What was going on? "Did you hear me clearly?" The steward shouted angrily. "Yes, yes, yes." The 4 guards nodded quickly. "You like to stand there, right? Okay. I'm just here to see how long you can stand there." The steward sneered at Qin Feiyang and shouted, "Give me a chair." A staff member immediately brought a chair over. Immediately. The steward sat arrogantly at the door and looked at Qin Feiyang coldly. Qin Feiyang did not say anything. He crossed his arms and looked at him indifferently. What's going on? However, the people on the street were all bewildered. When Qin Feiyang went in, they were still talking and laughing. How did it become like this in the blink of an eye? Sheng Wanxiu looked at Qin Feiyang and whispered, "Steward, you." But before Sheng Wanxiu could finish, the steward's face was filled with anger. He shouted, "Don't forget who you are. You belong to the treasure pavilion, not him. If you dare to say another word, don't blame me for being rude and kicking you out of the treasure pavilion. You're still trying to take advantage of me?" Sheng Wanxiu raised his eyebrows and walked out of the treasure pavilion. He stood beside Qin Feiyang. Good, good, good. This is your own choice. From now on, you are no longer a member of the treasure pavilion." The steward saw this and laughed out of anger. "Arrogant, continue to be arrogant. Let's see how arrogant you can be." Sheng Wanxiu sneered in his heart. As for Ren Xiaolan, she stood beside the steward and did not say a word. At the same time. East, Mount Qingyun. It was located on the east side of the Dragon God Palace, about 100,000 miles away from the Dragon God Palace. It could be said that this was a very dangerous place because it was too close to the Dragon God Palace. However, sometimes, the more dangerous a place was, the safer it was. Swoosh! Suddenly, 2 figures descended in the sky above the mountain range. It was Supreme Cloud and Jiang Dafei. Supreme Cloud glanced at the mountain range and said, "Do as Qin Feiyang instructed." Okay. Jiang Dafei nodded and swallowed an illusion pill, transforming into Qin Feiyang's appearance. Following closely, Jiang Dafei took a step forward and entered the sky above Mount Qingyun. Supreme Cloud did not follow. He landed on a mountain peak below and watched from afar. Boom! When Jiang Dafei entered the heart of the mountain range, he immediately released his divine sense and spread it in all directions. Soon, his eyes lit up. But at the same time, 3 streaks of cold sword light shot out from somewhere in the mountains below, heading straight for Jiang Dafei. Jiang Dafei's eyes flashed and he dodged 2 of the sword lights in a panic. However, the other sword light pierced through his qi. Puchi. A bloody hole appeared and blood gushed out. Immediately, 3 loud laughter rang out. Following closely, 3 figures flew out from the mountains below. Who else could it be but Wu Baisheng and the other 2? At this moment, each of them was holding a battle sword, which was a legendary level divine artifact. They looked at Jiang Dafei with a sneer on their faces. What do you want? Jiang Dafei glared at the 3 of them. The 3 of them were still in soul form. In other words, their physical bodies had yet to be reconstructed. What do you think we want? Wu Baichuan asked back. The 3 of them thought that the person in front of them was Qin Feiyang, but they didn't know that it was Jiang Dafei in disguise. You want to kill me? Jiang Dafei raised his eyebrows. That's right. The 3 of them nodded. Impudent. Now that even Wang Ming and Yang Li have submitted to me, you dare to touch me? Jiang Dafei shouted. What? Master has submitted to you? Wu Baisheng was surprised. That's right. I came to Mount Qingyun specifically to find you. Because I promised Wang Ming to give you a chance to follow me. Jiang Dafei said. Impossible. Wu Baisheng shook his head. If not for Wang Ming, how would I know that you guys are hiding in Mount Qingyun? Jiang Dafei said. Hearing that, the 3 of them exchanged glances. Brother, it seems that only Lord Wang Ming knows that we are hiding here. Wu Baichuan frowned. Wu Baisheng pondered for a moment and looked at Jiang Dafei. Did Master really ask you to come? Yes. Jiang Dafei nodded. Where is Master now? Wu Baisheng asked. Jiang Dafei frowned. As his disciple, you don't know where he is? When Master found us, he only said that he had something to deal with, but he didn't say where he was going. Wu Baisheng said. I do have something to deal with, but it's very important and I can't tell you guys. Jiang Dafei shook his head. How do I know if what you said is true? Wu Baisheng said in a deep voice. What do you want then? Jiang Dafei frowned. What do I want? Wu Baisheng smiled malevolently. Even if what you said is true, so what? What do you mean? Jiang Dafei frowned even more. Wu Baisheng laughed and said, now that your Sea of Qi is destroyed, of course I have to kill you. You, Jiang Dafei was furious. Don't use Master to pressure me. Even if Master submits to you, so what? He is him, and I am me. Besides, as long as I kill you, Master will regain his freedom. At that time, he will have to thank me. Wu Baisheng laughed. When Du Yuntian and Wu Baichuan heard this, a cold sneer appeared on their faces. You didn't expect this, did you? To think that you would fall into our hands one day. We'll let you run wild in hell. Go to hell. The 3 of them waved their battle swords and charged at Jiang Dafei. Are you really going to kill me? Jiang Dafei frowned. Do you think we're joking with you? Wu Baisheng shouted. Sigh. Jiang Dafei shook his head and sighed. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Even if I kill you now, Emperor Ming can't blame young master. Hearing this, the 3 of them stopped in their tracks and looked at Jiang Dafei suspiciously. Jiang Dafei took out a facial restoration pill and threw it into his mouth. Soon, his appearance was restored. Why are you here? The 3 of them turned pale with fright. It's me. The young master sent me here to test you, said Yi Futian. Because young master promised Emperor Ming to give you a chance. Unfortunately, even if I told you everything, you still want to kill me. It's you who missed the chance. Jiang Dafei shook his head. Where is Qin Feiyang? The 3 of them were bewildered. Young master didn't come, but Lord Supreme Cloud did. Jiang Dafei said. Supreme Cloud. The 3 of them paled. Swoosh. In the next moment, Supreme Cloud appeared in front of Jiang Dafei, looking at the three of them and sighing. It wasn't easy for Wang Ming to give you this chance, why didn't you cherish it? The three of them were flustered. Supreme Cloud said, let's go, follow us to see Qin Feiyang. No. Lord Supreme Cloud, please give us a way out. Besides, isn't Qin Feiyang your enemy too? The three of them knelt in the void. Although they knew that Qin Feiyang had returned, they didn't know what happened on Divine Dragon Island. Because what happened on Divine Dragon Island hadn't spread yet. Therefore, they didn't know that Supreme Cloud had also submitted to Qin Feiyang. As for how they knew that Qin Feiyang had returned, it was actually very simple. When the five-clawed golden dragon robbed the Dragon God Temple, it caused a huge commotion. It was hard for them not to know. Therefore, when they knew that the five-clawed golden dragon had appeared, they already thought that Qin Feiyang had returned. Moreover, when Qin Feiyang killed Yizhong on Black Tortoise Mountain, many people saw it. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and naturally, it would spread to the east and reach their ears. Chapter 2871. Supreme Cloud was silent for a while, then looked at the three of them and said, this venerable one has also pledged allegiance to Qin Feiyang. What? The three of them trembled. Supreme Cloud had already pledged allegiance to Qin Feiyang? If that was the case, Jiang Dafei had not lied to them before. Wang Ming had indeed pledged allegiance to Qin Feiyang. To them, this was simply a nightmare. Supreme Cloud waved his hand and opened an altar. He stepped onto it and said to the three of them, let's go. The three of them were pale. There was no way out of this. But how could they escape when faced with Supreme Cloud? None at all. They did not know how strong Supreme Cloud was, but as members of the Dragon Slayer Palace, their fear of him was deeply ingrained. What should they do? Hurry up. Supreme Cloud raised an eyebrow. Wu Baixing shuddered and hurriedly pleaded, my lord, please be kind and give us a way out. I've given you a chance, but you didn't grasp it. I can't help you now. Supreme Cloud shook his head. Qin Feiyang isn't here anyway. You can tell him that we're very honest. Then he won't kill us, right? Wu Baixing said anxiously. Yes, yes, yes. I beg you, Lord Supreme Cloud, and Jiang Dafei. No, 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 Big Brother Jiang, we really don't want to die. Can you give us another chance? We promise that we'll serve Qin Feiyang and the Dragon Slayer Palace wholeheartedly in the future. The three of them looked pitifully at Supreme Cloud and Jiang Dafei. The impatience on Supreme Cloud's face deepened. With a wave of his hand, the three of them fell uncontrollably onto the altar. Jiang Dafei shook his head, took a spirit sea pill, and flew onto the altar as well. Holy Dragon City. More and more people gathered on the street in front of the treasure pavilion. Everyone was puzzled. Although the steward of the treasure pavilion was snobbish, he knew his limits. The other party was the famous Qin Feiyang, an existence that even the dragons had to revere. Logically speaking, the manager of the treasure pavilion should not have done such a foolish thing. What was it that made the steward of the treasure pavilion so angry that he didn't hesitate to offend Qin Feiyang? However, no one at the scene introduced them. As the person involved, Qin Feiyang had been standing quietly in front of the door with his arms crossed. The manager of the treasure pavilion sat at the entrance, sneering at Qin Feiyang. Whoosh! Time passed by slowly. Suddenly, 5 figures descended above the treasure pavilion. Yes, City Lord. And the Chief Pavilion Lord. The crowd immediately became restless. That's right. They were none other than Jiang Dafei, Supreme Cloud, and Du Yuntian. However, the people of Holy Dragon City were unfamiliar with Du Yuntian and the other two. The manager of the treasure pavilion stood up immediately when he saw Supreme Cloud. What happened? Supreme Cloud asked suspiciously as he landed beside Qin Feiyang with 4 others. Qin Feiyang was about to speak. The steward of the treasure pavilion was a step ahead of him. He ran to Supreme Cloud and exclaimed, "Milord, you've finally returned. You don't know, this Qin Feiyang is really too arrogant." Supreme Cloud looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "Let him speak." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Supreme Cloud looked at the manager and said, "Go on." As soon as he entered the treasure pavilion, he arrogantly announced that Sheng Guanqiu would take over the treasure pavilion. He even said that he was the owner of the treasure pavilion. Tell me, how can I not be angry when faced with this? Who does he think he is? What right does he have to meddle in the affairs of the treasure pavilion? The manager of the treasure pavilion roared angrily. I see. Then Qin Feiyang is really too much. An outsider actually interfered with the internal personnel arrangement of the treasure pavilion. Don't you know how evil this person is? He even killed his master, Yi Zhong. What else won't he do? I used to think that he was pretty good, but now I see that he's even more domineering than the dragons. I don't know whether his rise is good or bad for the divine land. When the people on the street heard this, they immediately whispered to each other. What nonsense are you talking about? Senior Yi Zhong is not dead at all. Jiang Dafei said angrily. Not dead? So many people saw it that day. How dare you lie through your teeth? It seems that the people of the dragon-slaying palace are no different from the dragons. People snorted. Now, Jiang Dafei's true identity was no longer a secret. How dare you? Jiang Dafei was furious. Qin Feiyang said faintly, there's no need to explain so much to them. But what they said about you, Jiang Dafei felt very uncomfortable. Qin Feiyang had been working hard to destroy the dragons, but what about these people? They did nothing but make a fuss all day long. Let them say what they want. It's not like they'll lose anything anyway. Qin Feiyang smiled. Sigh. Only young lord has such a good temper. If it were anyone else, they would have killed them long ago. Jiang Dafei shook his head and sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. When Supreme Cloud heard this, he glanced at Qin Feiyang, then looked at the steward and said, So you drove him out? Yes. This kind of person must not be tolerated. The steward nodded. Supreme Cloud smiled bitterly, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said, I didn't expect this to happen. Neither did I, Qin Feiyang shrugged. Then why didn't you say so? Supreme Cloud asked. Qin Feiyang said, if I said it directly, would I have the chance to see this face? All right. Supreme Cloud nodded helplessly, looked at the steward and said, since you're the one who chased him out, then think of a way to invite him in. What? The steward was stunned. Ren Xiaolan was stunned as well. The people around also looked at Supreme Cloud in astonishment. Invite him in? What was going on? Supreme Cloud looked at the steward and said, I don't want to say it again. No, sir, this isn't right. He came to our treasure pavilion to cause trouble. Why do we have to invite him in? The steward was puzzled. Supreme Cloud said, because he is indeed the owner of the treasure pavilion now. The steward was dumbfounded. The people around who were ready to watch the show were also stunned. What was going on? When did Qin Feiyang become the owner of the treasure pavilion? I officially announce that from this moment on, everything in the treasure pavilion will be under the control of Qin Feiyang. Supreme Cloud said. When these words came out, the treasure pavilion steward was thunderstruck. Now, he finally understood how serious a mistake he had made. Ren Xiaolan quivered and came back to her senses. She hurriedly ran to Qin Feiyang's side and said, Young Master Qin, this is all the steward's fault. He was blind. Don't keep standing here, quickly come in and sit. Shangguan Xiu sneered. Why didn't you say anything before? Sister Shangguan, I wouldn't dare to say anything if the steward wasn't here. Ren Xiaolan sighed. Can you not be so hypocritical? It's disgusting to look at you. Shangguan Xiu's eyes were full of disgust. Ren Xiaolan was stunned and hurriedly asked, Sister Shangguan, what do you mean? Don't call me that so intimately. I'm not worthy of being your sister. Shangguan Xiu said. Ren Xiaolan panicked and hurriedly said, Sister Shangguan, don't you understand? Do you really think I don't know that you're trying to worm your way into being friends with me so that you can keep an eye on me? Shangguan Xiu shouted. You, Ren Xiaolan looked at Shangguan Xiu in shock. Shangguan Xiu said, Are you surprised? How would I know? It's not like that, it's not like that. Ren Xiaolan waved her hands and looked at Qin Feiyang. Young Master Qin, let me explain, shut up. Qin Feiyang frowned. Ren Xiaolan was extremely flustered. Do you know? Not long ago, I really wanted to laugh when I heard you say, grateful and grateful. I want to ask, is there anyone as grateful and grateful as you? Qin Feiyang said. I was forced to do it, Ren Xiaolan said. I know, but so what? If you really were grateful and grateful, you could have told Shangguan Xiu secretly. But you didn't. Qin Feiyang shook his head in disappointment. Ren Xiaolan was completely flustered. And you, Qin Feiyang looked at the steward again and said, I've given you many chances. Why didn't you cherish them? I'm sorry, the steward looked at Qin Feiyang in panic. You want to be done with just an apology? Qin Feiyang said lightly. The steward's expression froze. He smiled obsequiously and said, Then shall we go in first? No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. I'll kneel down in front of you. The steward knelt down in front of Qin Feiyang with a thud. What did I say in the study not long ago? Don't kneel down and beg me. You're kneeling down and begging me now. You're too spineless. Qin Feiyang said. Fuck off, you motherfucker, the steward cursed and smiled obsequiously. It's my fault. It's all my fault. You're a magnanimous person. Don't be so calculative with me. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He turned to look at Shangguan Xiu and asked, Am I that magnanimous? Obviously not. Shangguan Xiu held back his laughter and shook his head. That's right. I'm not a magnanimous person. Why shouldn't I be calculative with you? Qin Feiyang looked at the steward and said lightly. The steward was about to cry. Why did he offend this person in a moment of impulse? Even if the other party was rude and unreasonable, he shouldn't have fallen out with him on the spot. He regretted it. Ren Xiaolan stood aside, not daring to say a word. Her face was pale. She could feel that Qin Feiyang had the intention to kill her. Duyun Tian and the other two looked at Qin Feiyang. They were scared out of their wits. He was really a killer. Why was he in the divine land? Did he leave his divine soul outside before entering the hell of the Nether King like them? What made them feel the most desperate was that even Supreme Cloud had submitted to this person. Supreme Cloud was the pinnacle existence in the ancient world. Even such a big shot had submitted to Qin Feiyang. Who else in the ancient world would dare to go against Qin Feiyang? Other than the dragons, there was no one else. In other words, although Qin Feiyang was only at the peak of the ninth heaven realm, he was already standing at the pinnacle of the ancient world. Insignificant people like them were like ants in front of Qin Feiyang. Fear and despair surged uncontrollably and drowned them. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.